Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the world not as a straight line of progress, but as a labyrinth, a twisting passage of light and shadow, of memory and silence. Some corridors are well lit, filled with chronicles and monuments, names and dates carefully preserved, but others vanish into darkness, where footsteps echo faintly and voices murmur from the past. This is where our journey begins. For as long as humanity has told stories, we have asked one haunting question. Are we truly the first civilization? When you walk among the ruins of ancient temples or gaze up at monuments so immense they dwarf even modern machines, the question lingers in the air. Who truly built these wonders? How did they carve stone with such precision, move blocks heavier than houses, chart the heavens without telescopes? Were these the achievements of hands no different from ours, or are they echoes of knowledge borrowed from a deeper, older past? Across the planet, there are objects that should not exist. They are not inventions of imagination, but fragments pulled from the earth, preserved against all odds, daring us to ask questions that textbooks often avoid. A map drawn centuries before Antarctica was known to the world. A corroded lump of bronze gears that turned out to be a computer older than Christ. Stones in Peru locked together so tightly that not even a blade of grass can slip between them. Each one whispers the same riddle. What if the story we tell of ourselves is incomplete? The silence of time is deceptive. It erases kings and queens, it swallows cities, it buries libraries beneath sand and ash. But sometimes the silence leaves cracks. Through those cracks, a faint voice emerges. Not loud enough to explain, only enough to disturb. Enough to remind us that the earth remembers more than we do. Imagine a forgotten scholar unrolling a map. His candle flickering against parchment lines that curve and twist into shapes no one of his time should have known. Imagine a diver, struggling against currents, brushing mud from a shattered shipwreck only to find gears, impossibly intricate gears, that once measured the dance of the sun and moon. Imagine a traveller standing before a wall of stone so vast it might as well be the edge of a mountain, and realizing that every stone has been carved and placed by human hands. The mind stumbles, the heart races. Logic offers explanations, coincidence, lost skill, exaggerated legend. Yet none feel complete. Each explanation is thin, fragile, like paper held against the weight of stone. And so the mystery grows. To listen to these mysteries is not to seek final answers. It is to step into a dialogue with time itself. The ancients left fragments, not explanations. They left us puzzles, not instruction manuals. Perhaps they did this on purpose. Perhaps they understood that memory survives best when it is hidden in riddles, when it demands imagination from those who come after. As night deepens and you settle into your place of rest, let us follow these fragments together. Let us move gently into the corridors of forgotten civilizations, where each ruin is a doorway, each artifact a key. In the dim glow of this journey, we will wander across continents and centuries. We will pause in the deserts of Egypt, where the pyramids rise like frozen mountains of geometry, aligned not only with the earth, but with the stars. We will walk the highlands of Peru, where massive walls still stand unshaken by earthquakes, mocking the tools of the Incas. We will sail with maps that chart coastlines centuries too soon, and stand before temples where shadows fall exactly at the solstice, as if stone itself were a clock set by the cosmos. But tonight, in this beginning, let us linger in the question itself. Civilizations rise and fall. Their brilliance burns bright, then fades. Yet sometimes the embers remain glowing in silence. They glow in objects we call out-of-place artifacts. They glow in myths that sound eerily like memory. They glow in ruins whose scale seems to belong to another age. What if human history is not a staircase of steady ascent, but a cycle? What if there were ages of light before us, whose knowledge slipped away in floods, fires, and the slow erasure of centuries? What if our ancestors were not primitive dreamers stumbling toward progress, but custodians of wisdom we no longer understand? The idea is unsettling. It shakes the confidence of modernity, the belief that we stand at the highest point of a long climb, yet it is also strangely comforting. For if knowledge has risen before, perhaps it will rise again. If civilizations have fallen and been forgotten, then we're not alone in our fragility. We're part of a greater rhythm, a song that began long before we awoke. Tonight, as you drift deeper into rest, let the rhythm of that song carry you. Picture the earth as a vast archive. Beneath deserts, beneath oceans, beneath jungles, countless chapters lie unread. Some may never be found, others may surface unexpectedly, a stone lifted, a shipwreck dredged, a parchment rediscovered. Each one reminds us that we are temporary, but curiosity is eternal. In this labyrinth of history we may never find the centre. But perhaps the purpose is not the centre, but the wandering itself, the willingness to step into shadow, to ask questions without answers, to listen for whispers where silence is loudest. And so we begin, with ruins half buried, with stars above that shine on the same stones our ancestors raised, with questions that tug at us across time. Close your eyes, feel the weight of those stones pressing softly against memory. Hear the echo of forgotten voices carried on the wind. History is not asleep, it dreams, and tonight we step into that dream together. The year is 1513, the world is trembling on the edge of discovery. European ships driven by wind and greed cut across oceans with sails swollen like the wings of mythical birds. The coastlines of Africa and the Americas are being sketched into existence, though always roughly, like charcoal outlines yet to be filled. But in the heart of the Ottoman Empire in Istanbul, a man leans over parchment with a steady hand. His name is Piri Reis, an admiral, a navigator, a scholar of seas. He dips his pen into ink and begins to draw a map. At first it is what one might expect. The familiar shores of Europe, the curving span of Africa, the bulging edge of South America only recently glimpsed by sailors. Yet the longer you study his work, the stranger it becomes. For hidden in those curling coastlines, in the delicate strokes of ink, lies something no man of his century should have known, a coastline beneath the ice. Hundreds of years later, when scholars rediscovered fragments of Piri Reis's map in a dusty palace archive, they did not think much of it. It was only one of many charts, part of a navigator's life. But when modern eyes laid it beside satellite photographs, something impossible appeared. There, at the bottom of the parchment, faint and incomplete, was the outline of Antarctica. But not the Antarctica we know, not the land locked in glaciers miles thick, but a coastline free of ice, bays, inlets, and capes drawn with uncanny precision, as though someone had seen them with their own eyes. The world of 1513 knew nothing of Antarctica. It would not be officially sighted until the 19th century, nearly 3 centuries later. And even then, no one could have glimpsed its ice-hidden shore. How, then, did Piri Reis draw it? Borrowed knowledge, older than memory. Piri himself left notes upon the map, little inscriptions in the margins. He claimed he had drawn not only from his own voyages, but from older charts, some taken from Arab sailors, others copied from even more ancient sources. He spoke of maps that had passed through hands long since vanished, relics of geographers whose names are forgotten. Some scholars suggest that he may have inherited fragments of knowledge from the age of Alexandria, when the great library sought to gather all the world's wisdom. Others whisper of traditions reaching even deeper, to civilizations before the Ice Age, when rising seas drowned coastlines and erased their cartographers. If true, then Piri Reis was not the author so much as the scribe of a memory far older than his time. He preserved a thread of knowledge that should have been impossible, a glimpse into a world long lost. The puzzle of precision. Skeptics, of course, raise their objections. Perhaps the resemblance to Antarctica is coincidence. Perhaps the lines at the bottom of the map represent not an icy continent, but a distorted rendering of South America, stretched by copying errors. Yet the more the map is studied, the harder such dismissals become. The placement of certain features matches the subglacial topography, revealed only by 20th century surveys. The alignment of bays and headlands seems deliberate, not accidental. The accuracy surpasses what a sailor of the 16th century could have guessed. It is as though Piri's ink was guided by voices across centuries, voices that had seen the world as it once was when ice had not yet claimed the poles. The silence of absence. What makes the map most haunting is not only what is drawn, but what is missing. Antarctica today is a vast frozen continent, larger than Europe, cloaked in whiteness. But on Piri's map, it is only a fragment, a portion of coast peeking from beneath the ink, incomplete, like a memory fading at the edges. The rest is silence, as if knowledge itself had been broken, handed down in pieces torn by time, and so we are left with a riddle written not in stone, but in parchment. Was Piri Reis copying a sailor's map from an unknown voyage? Or was he inheriting something stranger, a shard of wisdom from a civilization erased by flood, leaving behind only whispers disguised as charts. The hand that drew in shadows. Imagine the admiral at his desk, candlelight trembling against the walls. The city outside hums with markets and prayers, but in his chamber the sea is spread before him in lines of ink. He dips his pen and pauses, gazing at the empty bottom of the parchment. Does he know what he is drawing? Or is he merely copying, unaware that his hand is sketching a coast 300 years before anyone of his era will set eyes upon it? Perhaps he wonders at it. Perhaps he feels the faint echo of something ancient guiding his strokes. Perhaps he suspects that the sea keeps secrets, and that maps are more than directions. They are memories, layered and preserved, waiting to be read. The legacy of hidden maps. The Piri Reis Map is not alone in this mystery. Throughout history there are whispers of charts and globes that seem to know too much. Maps of the Americas long before Columbus. Portolan charts with coastlines too precise for their age. Traditions of sea kings and forgotten navigators who sailed before history began. Each one adds another piece to the puzzle. A pattern emerges, faint but undeniable. The idea that humanity has always been a sailor upon older seas, inheriting knowledge like driftwood washed ashore. What maps really are? To understand the haunting power of the Piri Reis Map, one must remember what a map truly is. It is not just ink and lines. It is a mirror of perception, a bridge between mind and world. To draw a map is to claim knowledge, to fix the fleeting waves of experience into something that endures. When we look at Piri's parchment, we are not only looking at coastlines, we are looking at memory, at inheritance, at fragments of a world-view that stretches beyond his own lifetime. We are looking at a voice calling from an age we cannot see, the invitation of the unknown, and perhaps that is why the map continues to fascinate. Not because it offers an answer, but because it opens a question. Because in its faded ink we sense something larger. The possibility that the past was stranger than we imagine, and that the Earth itself carries memories older than our history. The Piri Reis Map does not explain. It invites. It whispers. There is more to the story. Look deeper. The world remembers more than you think. A dream of coasts unseen. As you drift now, let the image linger. Picture a coastline hidden beneath glaciers, silent and cold, yet once mapped by eyes that gazed upon it free of ice. Picture an admiral's hand tracing lines he could not fully understand, yet which carry truths across centuries. Feel the weight of that parchment in your hands, rough and fragile, yet bearing a message that survived fire, conquest, and oblivion. The sea is vast. History is vaster. And within its tides lie fragments of worlds we have forgotten, waiting for us to find them, waiting for us to listen. And so we continue into the next chamber of mystery. For if a map can remember what the earth has forgotten, what else waits in silence, hidden in the rust of old shipwrecks, in the gears of bronze fused by time? In the darkness of the Aegean Sea, another relic was found, one that turns not coastlines, but the heavens themselves. It is called the Antikythera Mechanism, and it may be the strangest voice of all. Far beneath the restless surface of the Aegean Sea, where light fades into green twilight, lies a realm of silence. Broken amphorae sleep in sand. Statues of forgotten gods lean half-buried, their marble eyes staring into eternity. And in the year 1901, among these shadows, fishermen searching for sponges stumbled upon something that would forever alter our understanding of the past. It began with fragments, rusted, fused, unrecognizable. A lump of corroded bronze encrusted with barnacles heavy with centuries of salt. To the divers it seemed no different from the wreckage of anchors or fittings lost from ancient ships. They did not know that within that corroded shell slept the remnants of a machine so far ahead of its time that even today it unsettles us. Discovery in the deep, the wreck itself lay off the small Greek island of Antikythera, caught in the rocks where storms had dashed a Roman vessel 2,000 years before. Statues of heroes, vases, jewellery, all were salvaged, hauled to the surface, admired as treasures of the ancient world. But the strange bronze lump was set aside, forgotten for months, until scholars in Athens began to chip away at the corrosion. What emerged beneath their tools was not jewellery, not ornament, not the remains of a statue, but gears. Gears, dozens of them, interlocking with teeth cut so finely that they seemed impossibly modern. Small inscriptions emerged too, faint letters marking cycles of the sun, the moon, and the stars. It was not a decoration, it was a device. And with that realization, the silence of centuries broke into astonishment. A celestial computer. Piece by piece, scholars reconstructed what the mechanism once had been. A wooden box, perhaps the size of a shoebox, filled with bronze wheels, each one meshing with another, each one designed to turn in harmony. When a crank was turned, the gears rotated in ratios so precise that they could predict eclipses, track the phases of the moon, measure the wandering of planets through the zodiac. Scales and dials on the front and back recorded celestial cycles. The heavens themselves, it seemed, had been captured in bronze. This was not merely a clock. It was a computer, a machine of calculation built more than 2,000 years ago, and that fact alone struck like thunder. For nothing of such sophistication would appear again for over 1,000 years, until the mechanical clocks of medieval Europe. The shock of impossibility. The question rose immediately, who had built it? Was it the genius of one workshop, a singular mind whose brilliance flared and vanished? Was it the product of a tradition now lost, kept secret in temples, passed down like a spark from teacher to disciple until it flickered out? Or was it, as some dared whisper, the surviving echo of a knowledge older than Greece itself, carried across ages, preserved in silence until someone dared carve it into gears? The Greeks, we know, were masters of philosophy, mathematics, art. Archimedes had written of levers that could move the earth, of spheres that model the heavens, but to cut gears so small, so precise, so numerous, this was another level. Each tooth had to be filed by hand, each ratio calculated with accuracy rivaling modern engineering. It was as though the stars themselves had guided the craftsman's tools, the language of cycles. To hold the mechanism, or what remains of it, is to hold time itself. Its dials speak in rhythms we still recognize. The Saros cycle of eclipses, the Metonic cycle of 19 years, the gears that carry forward the phases of the moon with startling accuracy. On one surviving plate, faint Greek letters describe eclipses in terms of their colour and duration. Not simply when, but how the sky would darken. Imagine standing in an ancient city, knowing not only the day but the very quality of light that would fall when the sun vanished. To the people, such foresight must have seemed divine, and yet it was not magic. It was mathematics, bronze and ratio, a machine that captured the dance of the cosmos and made it turn beneath human fingers. The mystery of absence. What unsettles us most is not that the Antikythera mechanism exists, but that it stands alone. No other device of such sophistication has survived from antiquity. No gradual trail of simpler gears leading to this marvel. No libraries filled with instructions, no workshops filled with prototypes, only fragments dredged from the sea, fragile and unique. It is as though we glimpsed a lightning flash in the dark and then the night swallowed it whole. If such a machine could be built, why were more not made? Why do we not find them in temples, in observatories, in the ruins of cities? Did they exist and vanish, melted for bronze in times of war? Or was this one creation the solitary masterpiece of a forgotten genius, unmatched before or since? The silence around it is almost as haunting as the device itself, echoes of lost science. Legends in ancient texts speak of knowledge guarded by initiates, of books sealed in temples, of sciences preserved only for the worthy. Was the Antikythera mechanism one of those secrets, slipped into the hands of sailors who carried it aboard their ship until storm and sea claimed it? Or was it common knowledge in a circle of philosophers and craftsmen, erased by fire, conquest, and time? The Library of Alexandria may once have housed scrolls describing such devices. If so, their ashes drift now upon forgotten winds, and we are left with fragments, gears fused together, inscriptions eaten by corrosion. Enough to tantalize, but never to satisfy. The human touch. Imagine for a moment the workshop where it was built. The air smells of bronze filings and oil. Lamps glow softly. At a wooden bench, a craftsman leans close, filing the edge of a gear. His hands are steady, his eyes intent. Around him lie calculations written on papyrus, circles and ratios carefully inked. Perhaps he does not think of the ages. Perhaps he only thinks of the beauty of precision, the joy of gears that mesh perfectly. Yet without knowing it, he creates something that will outlast empires, sleeping in the sea until divers awaken it centuries later. The Antikythera mechanism is more than a device. It is the echo of that craftsman's hand reaching across time, reminding us that genius is not modern. It has always been with us, waiting for moments when imagination dares to push against the limits of what is known. A mirror of fragility, And yet, like all things, it is fragile. Its wood rotted away, its bronze eaten by salt, its dials broken. We see only glimpses of its former glory. What wonders were lost with the rest? What else lay in the wreck that crumbled into dust before it could be saved? It is a reminder that knowledge is not eternal. It can vanish as easily as ships sink. Entire traditions can dissolve, leaving only puzzles for future generations to ponder. And so the Antikythera Mechanism is both triumph and warning. It shows us what was possible but also what was forgotten. The invitation of wonder. As you rest now, imagine holding the fragments in your palm. They are cool, rough, heavy with centuries, and yet, when you turn them, you see the teeth of gears still aligned, ready to turn again. You feel the faint echo of the heavens moving beneath your fingers. It whispers to you, remember us. The Antikythera Mechanism does not give us certainty. It gives us wonder. It tells us that history is not a straight ascent, but a labyrinth filled with brilliance born and lost. It dares us to believe that we are not the first to touch the stars with our minds. The sea has many secrets. It swallows, but it also preserves. And as we leave this wreck behind, we turn toward the desert, where the sands guard monuments even older, even stranger. The pyramids of Egypt. Are they tombs for kings? Or are they, like the Antikythera Mechanism, machines, engines of stone that harnessed forces we no longer understand? Let us walk into the shadow of those giants and listen to their silence. The desert of Egypt is a place of silence. At dawn the air is cool and still, the sand a pale gold beneath the rising sun. Across the horizon, dunes stretch like frozen waves, and in their midst the pyramids rise, enormous, geometric, immovable. They are not merely buildings, they are landscapes in themselves, mountains carved by human hands. We have seen them in countless pictures, yet to stand before them is to feel something deeper. Their presence is overwhelming, as if the desert itself has lifted stone upon stone to create a monument that defies time. The Great Pyramid at Giza has stood for more than 4,000 years. Empires have risen and fallen, prophets have spoken, cities have crumbled into dust, and still these pyramids endure. The riddle of immensity. Each block weighs tons, some as heavy as cars, others as heavy as locomotives, and there are millions of them, stacked in perfect order, aligned with uncanny precision. The base of the Great Pyramid is almost perfectly square. Its sides point nearly exactly to the cardinal directions. Even today, with satellites and laser measurements, the alignment astonishes. The official story tells us armies of labourers hauled the stones across the sand, dragging them with ropes, lifting them up ramps, year after year, decade after decade, until the pyramid was complete, a story of sweat and persistence. But as you stand at its base, craning your neck upward, that explanation begins to feel thin. The sheer scale seems to mock it. Could ropes and manpower alone have created something so exact, so immense, so enduring? Legends of hidden purpose. Ancient Arab chroniclers whispered another tale, that the pyramids were not tombs at all, but machines of the gods. Within their chambers, they said, were sealed books of knowledge, treasures hidden against the coming flood, secrets placed in stone for a future age. Others suggested the pyramids harnessed forces of life itself. Beneath the plateau, water channels carved through the bedrock hint at hydraulics, as if the builders knew how to draw energy from the pressure of the Nile. Inside, the granite chambers resonate with sound, chant a low tone, and the walls hum as if alive. Was this coincidence? Or were the pyramids designed as resonant instruments, amplifying vibration, altering mind and spirit? To stand in the king's chamber is to feel that resonance. The granite walls shiver faintly at certain frequencies. Your body seems to vibrate in sympathy. The air thickens. It is easy to imagine that this was no mere burial place, but a chamber of transformation, a place where sound and stone conspire to open the door to eternity. A marriage of heaven and earth. The pyramids are not only aligned with the earth, they are aligned with the stars. Shafts within the Great Pyramid point to Orion's belt, to Sirius, to the pole star of that ancient age. To the Egyptians, Orion was Osiris, god of rebirth, and Sirius was Isis, goddess of life and magic. Their union was cosmic, their power eternal. Some researchers suggest that the three pyramids of Giza mirror the pattern of Orion's belt, laid upon the desert as a reflection of heaven. If so, then the builders were not only engineers, but astronomers, weaving the cosmos into stone. The desert became a sky, the sky became a map, and the pharaoh's soul was eternalized among the stars. Others whisper of an even older tradition, inherited from a forgotten age, when sky watchers understood rhythms of the cosmos in ways we barely grasp today. The pyramids may be their legacy, passed forward as both monument and message. Science within the stone. Inside Egyptian papyri we find knowledge that seems advanced for its time. Anatomical notes, surgical techniques, plants used to numb pain, mathematics encoded in ratios, par, and the golden mean inscribed in the dimensions of the pyramids. The builders clearly possessed sophisticated science. And yet the pyramids blur the boundary between science and mystery. They are temples and observatories, yes, but some believe they were also engines, vast devices drawing upon the Earth's electromagnetic field, transmitting energy through quartz-lined passages. Others claim they were giant pumps, channeling water in a system that irrigated fields or supplied cities. More speculative theories imagine them as beacons, broadcasting signals to the heavens, monuments not only for the dead but for beings beyond the earth. Whether you accept such visions or not, the precision and endurance of the pyramids remain unmatched. Witnesses of eternity, walking the plateau at dusk when the sun dips behind the desert and shadows stretch across the sand, the pyramids change. They are no longer just monuments, they are survivors. They have seen empires rise and fall, armies march, prophets speak. They have absorbed the footsteps of priests, kings, conquerors and pilgrims. Their silence is heavier than their stone. They do not answer questions, but they generate them, endlessly, inexhaustibly. Were they tombs? Were they machines? Were they symbols? Perhaps they were all of these, or perhaps something else entirely. Touching the ancient mind, place your hand on the limestone. It is rough and cool, worn by wind and time. You're touching not only stone, but the edge of an ancient mind. You're pressing your palm against a question unsolved, a story half told. The pyramids do not give answers, they offer mirages. They remind us that the past was not simpler, but stranger, that in some ways it may even have been wiser, and as night falls, Orion rises above the plateau, its stars gleaming like jewels in the black sky. You realize that countless eyes once looked up from this very place, believing the stars and stones were connected, that the earth itself could speak to the heavens. The paradox of civilization. Perhaps that is the true secret of the pyramids, that they embody the paradox of civilization itself. We build to last forever, yet time erodes everything except mystery. If they were tombs, their treasures are gone, stolen long ago. If they were machines, their purpose is lost. If they were symbols, their meaning has faded with the language of their makers. Yet still they endure, not as answers, but as questions carved into the horizon. A chamber for dreaming. As you drift toward rest, imagine lying within the king's chamber. Darkness surrounds you. The air is still, almost heavy. The stone hums faintly, as though it remembers every voice, every chant, every prayer ever spoken within it. You breathe, slowly, deeply. The vibration enters your bones. You feel yourself become part of the stone, part of the geometry, part of the cosmos. For a moment you glimpse what the ancients may have sought, a passage not of death, but of transformation. The pyramid is no longer a tomb, it is a dream machine, carrying you into the eternal rhythm of the stars. The sands shift, the winds howl, yet the pyramids remain, silent, massive, enigmatic. Their stones whisper across the ages, "Remember us." And so, with questions unanswered, we move deeper into the labyrinth of lost civilizations. For across the world there are stones even larger, walls even stranger, blocks of such immensity that they seem to laugh at the strength of human hands. We journey now to Peru, to Lebanon, to places where megaliths rise like mountains, where legends speak of softened stone and singing blocks. The enigma of the megaliths awaits. Across the world, in mountains and valleys, deserts and islands, there lie walls and monuments so vast they seem less the work of men and more the work of giants. To approach them is to feel the weight of paradox. They are both silent and eloquent, both unyielding and yet whispering with mystery. These are the megaliths, stones so large that they challenge the imagination, and so precisely placed that even earthquakes have bowed to their will. We begin in the highlands of Peru, where clouds drift low across the ridges and the air is thin. Sacsayhuaman, teeth of the puma, Above the ancient city of Cusco, capital of the Inca Empire, stretches a fortress called Sacsayhuaman. At first glance, its walls appear jagged, like lightning frozen in stone. Great zigzagging ramparts, tier upon tier, snake across the hill. But when you come closer, the enormity reveals itself. Each block is massive, larger than cars, some heavier than trucks, weighing more than 100 tons. Yet they are not rough boulders. They are carved and fitted together with such precision that no mortar was needed. Slide the edge of a knife, even a blade of grass between them, and you will find no gap. The stones are not straight-edged. They curve and bend, locking together like puzzle pieces. This design, far from random, makes the walls earthquake-resistant. When the earth shakes, as it often does in the Andes, the stones shift and settle but never collapse. 4 centuries of tremors have tested them, and still they stand, defiant. Spanish chroniclers who first saw Sacsayhuaman were awed. They wrote that the stone seemed softened, moulded like clay, then hardened again. Local legends spoke of forces unknown, of songs and chants that lightened stone until it moved as easily as wood. Walk along these walls and you feel the weight of mystery pressing down. Ropes and ramps are the tools historians assign, yet the vision of men hauling such masses up steep terrain stretches belief. It is not impossible, but it feels improbable. And improbability, when multiplied by millions of pounds of stone, becomes mystery. Baalbek, the stones of the gods. Half a world away, in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, lies another riddle carved in stone. The ruins of Baalbek hold remnants of temples once dedicated to Jupiter, built by the Romans with grandeur fit for gods. But beneath the Roman columns, beneath the visible ruins, lie foundations that mock the very idea of human limitation. 3 stones in particular, called the trilithon, rest in the platform walls. Each is over 800 tons. Nearby, still half buried in its quarry, lies the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a single monolith weighing over 1,000 tons, the size of a small ship. Even today, engineers debate whether modern cranes could move such masses, let alone raise them into place. The ancient builders had no steel cables, no diesel engines, no machinery we consider necessary. And yet, there they are. Stones aligned, forming a platform so level that Roman temples were built upon it without adjustment. How were they moved? Some theories propose rollers of wood, but forests large enough to supply such rollers are absent from the treeless plain. Others imagine sledges dragged across lubricated tracks, or barges floating stones along rivers. Yet each explanation collapses beneath the sheer scale, leaving us staring at the impossible with silence. Local tradition has long called Baalbek the landing place of the gods. To walk its platform at sunset when the stones glow like embers is to feel that name whispering through the air. The Moai of Easter Island, faces of stone, eyes to the horizon. Far across the Pacific, on the remote island of Rapa Nui, rise the statues called Moai. Towering figures, long-faced and solemn, they gaze out across the horizon with eyes that seem both vacant and all-seeing. Carved from volcanic tuff, some stand 30 feet tall, weighing dozens of tons. But what deepens the mystery is not only their size, but their journey. The quarries where they were carved lie miles inland, yet the statues now stand on platforms by the coast, facing outward as though watching for something that never comes. How did they move? The islanders themselves say the Moai walked. They speak of mana, spiritual energy, that gave the statues life, allowing them to sway forward like giant beings. Modern experiments suggest the legends are not entirely metaphor. With careful ropes and coordinated rocking, small teams can indeed make a statue walk forward. But to imagine an entire island moving hundreds of these figures across miles of uneven land, that remains staggering, especially for a people with limited resources, isolated by thousands of miles of ocean. The Moai stand today as guardians of memory, gazing outward at seas their makers once crossed. Their stillness is deceptive. In their silence, they walk through imagination. Stonehenge, Circle of the Sun. In the rolling plains of England, where mist clings to grass and skylarks rise into morning light, another ring of stone waits. Stonehenge is perhaps the most famous megalithic monument on Earth. At first, it appears simple. Upright stones capped with lintels arranged in a circle. But the deeper you look, the stranger it becomes. The stones are massive, some weighing 25 tons, and they were dragged from quarries miles away. The smaller blue stones came from the Preseli Hills of Wales, nearly 200 miles distant. To move them without wheels, without beasts of burden, across rivers and hills, This required a faith and determination we can scarcely imagine. And yet, beyond the question of transport lies a greater riddle: alignment. On the summer solstice, the sun rises perfectly above the heelstone, casting its first light down the monument's axis. On the winter solstice, the sun sets in perfect alignment with the Great Arch. These are not accidents of placement. They are the fingerprints of a people who measured the sky with care, binding their lives to the rhythm of the heavens. To walk among Stonehenge at dawn is to feel that rhythm still, as if the stones remember the ceremonies of long ago. Legends cling to it like ivy. Medieval tales claimed Merlin the wizard brought the stones from Ireland, flying them through the air with giants. Folklore speaks of fairies dancing in the circle at night, of stones that walk back to their places if moved. Perhaps such stories are not meant to be literal, but to remind us of something deeper, that these stones are not simply geology, but cosmology. Not mere construction, but connection, the language of stone. What links these megaliths, from Peru to Lebanon, from Easter Island to England, is not only their weight, but their purpose. They were deliberate. They required planning, coordination, knowledge of balance and leverage. They required entire societies to devote decades, perhaps generations, to moving stone. Why? Were they fortresses, temples, calendars? Or were they enactments of myth, echoes of something even older, replicating knowledge passed down from forgotten ancestors? The details suggest mastery beyond brute force. Curving joints at Teotihuacan, earthquake-resistant. Level platforms at Baalbek, unshaken after millennia. Mortise and tenon joints at Stonehenge, carpentry scaled to titanic size. These are whispers of engineers who understood principles still respected today: stability, precision, endurance. And yet their purpose transcends practicality. They are not shelters, they are symbols. They are statements etched in rock. We were here, we understood. We dreamed beyond necessity. The haunting of improbability. Perhaps what is most haunting is not how these stones were moved, but why their builders insisted on moving them at all. Why carve mountains into blocks, drag them across miles, lift them into walls or circles, when wood or smaller stones would have sufficed? The answer may lie in the human desire for permanence, to etch meaning into the earth itself, to build something that would last beyond lifetimes, beyond kingdoms, beyond memory. The megaliths are not answers. They are questions cast in rock. They remind us that humanity's ambition is not only survival, but significance. That even in ages long past, people sought to anchor their world to the cosmos, to leave footprints large enough to outlast time. As night falls among the stones, imagine standing at Teotihuacan at dusk. Shadows stretch across the zigzag walls. The stones glow as though lit from within, fire embedded in their surface. Picture Baalbek beneath a rising moon, the unfinished monolith still lying half buried in its quarry, waiting for hands strong enough to lift it. See the Moai of Rapa Nui, their long faces silhouetted against the ocean, still gazing toward horizons where their makers once sailed. And walk through Stonehenge as the solstice sun pierces the heart of the circle, filling the stones with golden fire. In each place you feel the same presence, a silence that is not empty but full, a mystery carved into weight and balance, a message whispered by stone. Remember us. We endured. We reached for eternity. The megaliths are guardians of questions. They do not explain themselves, they endure, and in their endurance they invite us to wonder. And so we continue, deeper into the labyrinth of memory, further into the realms of myth and stone. For beyond these walls lies another tale, not of monuments that stand, but of an entire civilization that fell into the sea. Atlantis, a city radiant with wealth and power, a kingdom said to command technologies so advanced they seem like dreams, and then, in a single night, it was gone. The legend of Atlantis awaits us. The sea at dusk is a mirror of fire. The horizon glows crimson, waves ripple with gold, and in the fading light one might almost believe the ocean hides entire cities, sleeping beneath its restless skin. For thousands of years humanity has whispered the name of one such city, Atlantis. It is perhaps the most enduring legend of all, a tale of greatness and destruction, of hubris and divine retribution. Yet it did not begin as myth. It began in the writings of a philosopher, Plato's story. Around 360 BCE, in Athens, Plato wrote two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Within them, he recounted a tale he claimed to have heard from Solon, the wise lawgiver who had travelled to Egypt. There, priests of Sayers had spoken of a mighty empire that had existed 9,000 years before their time. Atlantis, they said, was an island kingdom beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Larger than Libya and Asia combined, it was rich beyond measure. Its kings ruled over temples plated in precious metals, fleets that crossed seas, armies that stretched across continents. Yet Atlantis was not only powerful, it was radiant. Canals ringed its capital in perfect circles, towers gleamed with orichalcum, a mysterious metal brighter than bronze. Gardens flourished, fed by ingenious aqueducts. The people were said to command knowledge of the stars, of energies drawn from earth and sky. Some accounts even hint they could channel the forces of weather, summon power from crystals, harness currents invisible to ordinary eyes. It was, Plato wrote, a civilization that rose too high, and in a single day and night of misfortune it fell. Earthquakes shook the land, waves devoured the coasts, and Atlantis sank into the sea, leaving only memory. A parable or a memory? Scholars argue endlessly. Was Plato inventing an allegory, a cautionary tale against arrogance? Or was he preserving fragments of an older memory, a story handed down across centuries until it reached his pen? If allegory, then Atlantis is a mirror of ourselves, warning of what happens when ambition outruns wisdom. If memory, then Atlantis is proof that civilizations can rise to greatness and vanish, leaving behind only whispers. Perhaps it is both. Visions of the lost city. Imagine Atlantis as Plato described it. Concentric canals shimmering with sunlight, bridges arching across the waters, markets filled with traders from distant lands, temples whose walls glowed with metals we no longer know. Some imagine towers of crystal, focusing energy like beams of light. Others dream of vast engines drawing power from the sea itself, or fleets guided by magnetic stones across oceans. Legends say the Atlanteans could travel across the world, founding colonies, teaching knowledge, leaving behind seeds that blossomed in Egypt, in Central America, in the temples of forgotten coasts. Even the myth of the Great Flood, told in cultures from Mesopotamia to the Americas, may be an echo of Atlantis' end, a memory of rising seas at the close of the last ice age, when waters surged and swallowed coastlines. The search for Atlantis. For centuries, seekers have hunted its remains. Some place it in the Atlantic, shattered by volcanic eruption, others in the Mediterranean, pointing to the island of Santorini and the Minoan civilization, destroyed by fire and wave around 1600 BCE. Still others trace it to the Caribbean, to the Azores, to the coast of Spain, even to Antarctica beneath the ice. Expeditions have scanned the seafloor, divers have searched among ruins, and yet certainty slips away like water through fingers. Each clue raises more questions than it answers. Perhaps that is why Atlantis endures. Not because we know where it was, but because it could have been anywhere. Because its story is not just a tale of place, but a tale of possibility, hubris and fall. Plato was clear in his moral. Atlantis was not destroyed merely by fate, but by its own pride. Its people, once noble, became greedy, corrupt, forgetful of the divine order. Their empire stretched too far, their ambition climbed too high, and when they sought to conquer even Athens, the gods struck them down. This theme repeats across history. The mighty undone by their own arrogance, empires that believed themselves eternal, only to crumble in an instant. Atlantis is not only a legend, it is a warning written in waves, echoes in other cultures. The idea of a great land lost to the sea is not unique to Plato. Across the world, stories linger of islands that sank, of kingdoms devoured by water. In the Pacific, Polynesian myths speak of Hawaii, a homeland swallowed by the ocean. In India, Tamil legends tell of Kumari Kandam, a continent beneath the waves. In Celtic lore, Lyonesse lies west of Cornwall, its bells said to toll beneath the sea. Are these coincidences, or are they fragments of a shared memory distorted by centuries, but rooted in a real cataclysm, the rising seas that followed the Ice Age? The dream that refuses to drown. Whether real or symbolic, Atlantis has power. Each generation reshapes it to its needs. Renaissance explorers believed they might rediscover it, proof of lands waiting across the ocean. Romantic poets turned it into a symbol of lost golden ages. Modern seekers imagine it as evidence of forgotten technology, a civilization that rivaled or surpassed our own. The dream endures because it speaks to our own longing. the desire to believe that greatness existed before us, that we are not the first to climb and perhaps not the last to fall. The city beneath the waves. As night deepens, let us picture it together. You stand upon a cliff, waves roaring below. The sea smells of salt and memory. In the distance, lightning flickers. Then, silence. The ground trembles. A roar rises from the depths. Walls crack. Temples crumble. Water surges inward. Streets vanish beneath foam. Statues topple. The cries of thousands are swallowed in an instant. And then, only ocean. Smooth, merciless, endless. A city erased as though it had never been. Yet in dreams it still shines. Atlantis within us. Perhaps Atlantis was never meant to be found. Perhaps it lives not beneath the sea, but within the human mind. A symbol of both our brilliance and our fragility. A reminder that knowledge is precious, that pride is dangerous, and that time spares no empire. Atlantis whispers that memory is fragile, that civilizations, no matter how radiant, can vanish. But it also whispers of hope, that even when all is lost, the story endures. For here we are, more than 2,000 years after Plato first wrote the tale, still listening, still wondering, still dreaming. Atlantis has not drowned. It has become eternal, not in stone, but in imagination. The next horizon. The waves continue to crash. The stars shine above. Somewhere out there, beneath miles of ocean, ruins may indeed lie waiting. Or perhaps nothing remains at all. But the yearning to discover them keeps us searching, probing, dreaming. Atlantis is a mirror. When we gaze into it, we see both our highest aspirations and our deepest fears. And so we leave the sea behind, not with certainty, but with wonder. For beyond the ocean's edge lies another legend, not of cities beneath water, but of machines that flew above the earth. In the epics of India, they are called Vimanas, chariots of the sky, vessels of fire and thunder. Were they myths of the gods, or memories of a technology we've forgotten? The next chapter calls us upward, into the heavens. The night sky in ancient India was alive with stories. Stars glimmered not merely as distant suns, but as jewels upon the tapestry of gods. Constellations marked the cycles of time, guided rituals and inspired epics. And within those epics, written thousands of years ago, there are passages that read not only as myth, but as something stranger. They speak of machines that flew, vessels of light and fire that crossed the heavens with a roar. They called them Vimanas, the Ramayana, Ravana's flying palace. In the Ramayana, one of India's great epics, the demon king Ravana of Lanka possessed a wondrous vehicle. It was called the Pushpaka Vimana, a flying chariot not drawn by horses but propelled by power unseen. Descriptions paint it not as a simple cart, but as a palace in the sky. It had golden pillars, shining windows, and chambers vast enough to carry hosts of people. It could move wherever its rider wished, soaring above mountains, gliding across oceans, shimmering like a jewel among clouds. When Rama, hero of the Ramayana, defeated Ravana, he claimed this Vimana. With it, he carried his companions back across the sea to Ayodhya. For those who told the tale, it was a gift of the gods. But for us, centuries later, the description resonates with an uncanny echo. It sounds less like poetry, more like memory of a flying machine. The Mahabharata, Wars of the Sky. If the Ramayana speaks of Vimanas as vessels of grandeur, the Mahabharata speaks of them as weapons. This vast epic describes great wars between kingdoms, and within its verses are accounts of machines that soared into the heavens, releasing weapons of devastating power, beams of light that blinded armies, thunderbolts that shattered cities, explosions so fierce that survivors' hair and nails fell out, waters boiled and land turned barren. Some passages sound eerily like accounts of radiation. Others read like descriptions of aerial battles, with chariots maneuvering, pursuing, firing weapons of fire and sound. Are these exaggerations, metaphors for divine wrath? Or do they conceal something stranger, a memory of technologies we do not expect in the ancient world? The Samarangana Sutradhara, a manual of flight. Beyond the epics, other texts deepen the riddle. The Samarangana Sutradhara, a Sanskrit treatise attributed to King Bhoja of the 11th century, devotes entire chapters to flying machines. It describes crafts made of light materials, engines powered by mercury, mechanisms that produce thunderous noise and fiery exhaust. Some designs mention multiple tiers, capable of travelling long distances through the sky. To modern eyes, it reads almost like an engineering manual, though cloaked in symbolic language. Scholars debate whether it was metaphor, imagination, or something drawn from older, now lost traditions. Symbol or memory? There are two ways to read the Vimanas. One is symbolic. The flying chariot represents transcendence. To ride a Vimana is to rise beyond earthly limits, to ascend into the realm of gods. It is a metaphor for spiritual journey, for the liberation of the soul. In this view, descriptions of speed and fire and brilliance are poetic language for mystical states. The other is literal. The Vimanas were machines, vehicles of metal and fire, perhaps built by humans, perhaps bestowed by beings from beyond. Their descriptions of sound, propulsion and weaponry are too precise, say some, to be dismissed as mere metaphor. Perhaps the truth lies in between, myth layered upon memory, symbolism embroidered over recollections of real wonders, images in stone. Carvings on temple walls in India depict beings riding strange vehicles. Some resemble thrones with wings, others towers carried upon clouds. To modern eyes, they can be interpreted as stylized Vimanas. To ancient eyes, they were simply depictions of gods. But what if the artisans were recording something remembered? Not only dreams, but reflections of real visions. A people's attempt to capture in stone what their ancestors once saw in the skies. Echoes in other lands. The mystery of flying machines is not confined to India. Across cultures, myths speak of chariots that fly, boats that sail the heavens, gods descending on vehicles of light. In Mesopotamia, texts describe the gods arriving in fiery craft. In Greece, Helios rode the sun's chariot across the sky. In the Bible, the prophet Ezekiel describes a vision of a wheel within a wheel, descending from heaven, glowing with fire and lightning. Could all these be independent metaphors? Or could they be cultural memories of encounters with the same mystery, interpreted through different tongues? The ancient astronaut theory. In the 20th century, the Vimanas became central to the ancient astronaut hypothesis. Writers suggested that gods described in the epics were in fact visitors from beyond the Earth, that their flying machines were spacecraft, misinterpreted by ancient peoples as divine. Skeptics dismissed this as fantasy, but the allure remained strong. The Vimanas fit seamlessly into the pattern of mythic machines that seem too technological for their time. Whether one accepts the theory or not, it reflects something profound, our recognition that the Vimanas do not fit comfortably into the categories of myth alone. They are something else, something that refuses to settle into certainty. Flight is a human longing, yet perhaps the truth is simpler and still profound. The Vimanas show us that the dream of flight is ancient. Long before the Wright brothers, long before rockets roared from launch pads, humanity was already telling stories of chariots that crossed the sky, of journeys among the stars. These stories reveal a longing older than history, to break free of gravity, to see what lies beyond the horizon, to ascend. The Vimanas are less about machines than about yearning, the yearning that defines us still. Visions of the sky. Picture the Pushpaka Vimana rising from Ravana's palace, golden and gleaming, drifting over the forests of Lanka. Picture Rama seated within it, gazing down as seas and mountains pass beneath, the craft obeying the will of his mind. Picture the battles of the Mahabharata, machines circling in the air, fire flashing, thunder echoing across plains, armies below trembling at powers they could not comprehend. Picture sages writing by lamplight, recording descriptions of engines, metals and flames, unsure whether they described visions of gods or memories of men. Whether literal or symbolic, these images endured for millennia. They endure still. The silence of absence. No physical Vimanas have ever been found. No fragments of metal. No blueprints preserved in hidden libraries. If they existed, they are gone. Lost like so much else to time and catastrophe. All that remains are words. Verses in palm leaf manuscripts. Lines carved in stone. Whispers passed down through tradition. Yet words are powerful. They have carried the idea of Vimanas across centuries, across languages, into our own imaginations. As you drift into rest, imagine lying on soft ground beneath the Indian sky. The air is warm, the scent of jasmine heavy. Above you, stars glitter like scattered jewels. And then, across the heavens, a shape glimmers. A chariot of light, humming softly, gliding without wings. You feel the air tremble. You hear a low thunder. It passes overhead, vanishing into the horizon, leaving only silence. Perhaps it was a dream, perhaps a memory, perhaps both. The Vimanas remind us that the boundary between myth and memory is thin, that in every story of gods there may be an echo of something once seen, once real, now forgotten. The skies hold their mysteries, but now we return to the earth to walk the avenues of another city. Not mythic, but real. A city so vast, so deliberate that even in ruin it overwhelms. Teotihuacan, the place where gods were born. The Valley of Mexico stretches wide and silent under the morning sun. Mists cling to the hills, dissolving slowly as light spreads across fields of volcanic soil. In the distance a line of mountains rises, their slopes veiled in green, and there at the heart of the plain the ruins appear. Vast, geometric, haunting. This is Teotihuacan, the city of the gods. A city so immense, so carefully planned, that when the Aztecs discovered its ruins more than 1,000 years after its fall, they believed it must have been built not by men, but by divine hands. The Avenue of the Dead. At the centre of Teotihuacan lies a road, straight and wide, stretching for more than a mile. The Spanish conquerors later called it the Avenida de los Muertos, the Avenue of the Dead. On either side, platforms and temples rise like silent sentinels, their steps climbing toward the sky. Walking along this avenue is like entering a dream of symmetry. The city is aligned with precision, its streets forming a grid, its monuments positioned with astronomical intent. Every stone, every angle, seems to whisper of a design beyond mere utility, a design that sought to mirror the cosmos. At its northern end towers the Pyramid of the Moon. At its southern end, the massive temple of the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, and in the centre, dominating all, rises the Pyramid of the Sun, one of the largest structures ever built by human hands. The Pyramid of the Sun. The Pyramid of the Sun is immense, 240 metres across at its base, 65 metres high, composed of millions of tons of stone and rubble. Its bulk dominates the valley, rising like a man-made mountain, and yet it is not rough. Its sides are angled with care, aligned to face the setting sun on specific days of the year. Beneath it, tunnels and chambers snake through the earth, some natural caves adapted by builders, others carved by deliberate hands. Within them, archaeologists have found altars, offerings, even traces of liquid mercury shimmering like starlight in the dark. What purpose did this pyramid serve? Was it a temple to the sun, a beacon to the heavens, or something stranger? A ritual machine designed to harness forces we no longer understand. Standing upon its summit, the wind whistling past, the view stretches across the valley. To the north, the Pyramid of the Moon mirrors it, smaller but no less enigmatic. Between them lies the Avenue of the Dead, like a cosmic axis binding earth to sky. The Pyramid of the Moon. At the far end of the avenue rises the Pyramid of the Moon. Though smaller than the Pyramid of the Sun, it is older, and perhaps more mysterious. Its steps rise steeply, each terrace echoing the silhouette of Cerro Gordo, the sacred mountain that looms behind it. Archaeologists have uncovered offerings buried deep within its layers, obsidian blades, greenstone figurines, the remains of animals, and sometimes human sacrifices. These offerings suggest that the pyramid was not only a temple, but a threshold between worlds, a place where the living sought to commune with the divine. From its summit, the Avenue of the Dead stretches southward, flanked by smaller pyramids and plazas, leading the eye toward the great expanse of the city. To stand there is to feel caught between two realms, earth and sky, life and death, mortal and eternal. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent. At the southern end lies the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, its facade once covered in carvings of plumed serpents and rain gods. The stone heads still jut outward, their fanged mouths open, their eyes round with power. This temple is associated with sacrifice. Mass graves of warriors have been found around it, their hands bound, their bodies offered to the gods. Yet it is also associated with renewal, fertility, and cosmic cycles. The feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, was a deity of creation, a being who bridged earth and sky, serpent and bird, material and spiritual. It is here that archaeologists uncovered tunnels filled with offerings, seashells from distant coasts, jade from the tropics, obsidian from volcanic mountains, and most astonishingly rivers of liquid mercury, gleaming in the torchlight like molten stars. What purpose did it serve? Some believe it symbolized an underworld river, a mirror of the cosmos, perhaps even part of rituals lost to time. The unknown builders. Who built Teotihuacan? When the Aztecs arrived in the Valley of Mexico in the 14th century, The city had already been abandoned for centuries. They walked its avenues with awe, calling it the place where gods were born. Yet they did not know its makers. Archaeology suggests the city flourished between 100 BCE and 550 CE, long before the Aztecs rose. At its height, it may have housed over 100,000 people, making it one of the largest cities on Earth at the time, and yet no records remain of its rulers. No names carved in stone, no kings immortalized in monuments. Only the architecture survives, silent and anonymous, as though the city itself, not its leaders, was meant to endure. A city of mystery, Teotihuacan was a cosmopolitan hub. Evidence shows trade from across Mesoamerica, obsidian from far volcanoes, shells from the coasts, pottery from distant valleys. People of many tongues lived here, drawn by its power, its rituals, its mystery. And yet, around the 6th century, something happened. The city burned, temples were smashed, statues defaced, palaces set aflame. Whether this was invasion, rebellion, or divine retribution, we do not know. By the time the Aztecs arrived, Teotihuacan was a ghost, its streets empty, its pyramids crumbling yet proud. The silence of that fall is haunting. How could a city so vast, so powerful, vanish so completely that not even the names of its kings remain? Cosmic alignments. Scholars note that Teotihuacan's layout is not random. The Avenue of the Dead is aligned 15.5 degrees east of north, pointing toward the setting of the Pleiades, a star cluster sacred across cultures. On certain dates, the sun rises and sets exactly along the city's axis. The pyramids, too, may mark cosmic cycles. Some suggest they mirror the pattern of Orion's belt, echoing the same design seen in Egypt. Others propose they track Venus, the morning star associated with Quetzalcoatl. Was Teotihuacan a city designed as a mirror of the heavens? A map of the cosmos carved into stone? If so, its builders possessed a knowledge of astronomy rivaling that of any age. The resonance of stone. Inside the pyramids, some chambers hum with resonance. Clap your hands at the base of the Pyramid of the Sun, and the echo returns like the call of a bird, a sound resembling the Quetzal, sacred to Mesoamerica. The architecture itself seems to sing, transforming stone into instrument. What rituals were performed in these resonant chambers? Were they chants, dances, offerings? Did the builders seek not only to worship the gods but to call them down, to make the city itself vibrate in harmony with the cosmos? Walking the avenue. As dusk falls, walk the Avenue of the Dead once more. The pyramids loom in twilight, their edges sharp against the sky. The air cools, shadows lengthen. You're surrounded not by silence, but by presence. The presence of a city that refuses to die. Here, thousands once gathered for ceremonies. Here, processions once walked, carrying offerings, singing to the gods. Here, rulers once gazed upon the horizon and believed they held the axis of the world. Now only the wind remains, and yet in its whisper you hear echoes, drums, flutes, voices chanting, fires crackling. The city is not empty. It is alive with memory. The lesson of Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan is a paradox. It is immense, yet anonymous. Planned with cosmic precision, yet silent about its makers. Enduring, yet fragile. It reminds us that civilizations can rise with brilliance and vanish without explanation. That knowledge can be preserved in stone while names are lost. That sometimes the truest legacy is not glory, but mystery. Toward the jungle, as night deepens, the pyramids fade into shadow, their outlines merging with the stars. You leave the Avenue of the Dead behind, carrying with you the weight of questions. Ahead lies another world, another people who measured time with brilliance and watched the sky with devotion. The Maya, masters of calendars, prophets of cycles, builders of temples where stone itself became a clock. Our journey continues into their jungles, into their labyrinth of time. The jungle breathes in whispers. At dawn, mist curls above the canopy, parrots wheel in the air, and howler monkeys call like distant thunder. Beneath the green veil, moss covers ancient stones and roots wrap around stairways that climb nowhere. These are the ruins of the Maya, a civilization that rose in the forests of Central America, carved time into calendars, and then, as suddenly as it flourished, seemed to vanish. Cities among the trees. To walk in the Maya world is to enter a landscape of temples and plazas, hidden in green silence. Tikal, Palenque, Copan, Calakmul, names that echo like spells. Each city was a kingdom, ruled by kings who bore titles of divine authority. Their palaces rose above plazas where thousands gathered. Their temples pierced the canopy, aligned to the sun, the moon, and the stars. Climb the steps of templed Wamet Tikal, and the jungle spreads around you like an endless ocean. From the top you see other pyramids rising through the trees, their peaks glowing with sunlight. Once, these plazas rang with drums and flutes, with dancers painted in bright feathers, with rituals meant to bind heaven and earth. The mathematics of eternity. The Maya were mathematicians of astonishing precision. They invented the concept of zero independently, centuries before it reached Europe. With it, they built a number system capable of reaching across vast spans of time. They were not content to mark seasons or years. They tracked cycles of centuries, millennia, even spans longer than recorded history. They divided time into the Harb of 365 days, the Zolkin of 260 ritual days, and the long count, which stretched into thousands of years. For the Maya, time was not linear. It was cyclical, repeating like the sun's rising and setting, like the stars returning to their places in the heavens. To them, history was not a straight road, but a wheel turning endlessly, bringing the past back to the present, and the present back to the past. The prophecy of cycles. In 2012, the world looked nervously at the Maya calendar. Many believed it foretold the end of time. In truth, it foretold only the end of a cycle, the close of the 13th Baktun, a period of roughly 5,125 years, and the beginning of another. To the Maya, such transitions were moments of renewal, when the cosmos reset itself, when endings became beginnings. But to us, heirs of linear thinking, the closing of a cycle seemed apocalyptic. We feared the end, while the Maya may have expected only transformation. Perhaps that is their truest lesson, that endings are not final, that history is rhythm, not silence. Chichen Itza, stone as a clock. Among the greatest Maya sites is Chichen Itza, where the pyramid of Kukulkan, El Castillo, rises with 4 stairways of 91 steps each, plus a final platform, together marking the 365 days of the year. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow along the stairway, forming the shape of a serpent descending from the top. The illusion lasts only a few minutes, as if the stone itself were alive, celebrating the moment when day and night stand in balance. Here, architecture was not only stone, it was time. The builders captured the movement of the heavens in geometry, transforming the sky into shadow and light upon the earth. Astronomers of the jungle. From their observatories, Maya priests charted the movements of planets with accuracy rivaling modern science. They tracked Venus with particular devotion, seeing it as the god of war and omen. Inscriptions describe war's time to its cycles, rulers aligning their reigns with its rising and setting. At Uxmal, the so-called House of the Magician rises above the jungle, its rounded form aligned to the equinox. At Copan, Stele Mark dates spanning thousands of years, carved with hieroglyphs that record events far in the past and far in the future. To the Maya, to measure time was to command it. Their kings were keepers of cosmic rhythm, their rituals designed to maintain harmony between human life and the eternal cycles of the cosmos. Blood and renewal. But the Maya world was not only mathematics and astronomy, it was also ritual, sacrifice, the offering of life to sustain time itself. Kings and queens drew blood from their own bodies, offering it on paper that was then burned, the smoke carrying their essence to the gods. In times of crisis, prisoners were sacrificed, their hearts offered upon temple altars. These acts were not cruelty alone. They were believed necessary to feed the cycle, to ensure the sun would rise, the rains would fall, and time would continue its eternal turning. To modern eyes, such rituals seem brutal, but to the Maya, they were sacred duties, woven into the fabric of life, reminders that even blood was part of the rhythm of the cosmos. The sudden silence. Around the 9th century, many great Maya cities began to fall silent. Tikal, Copan, Palenque, once thriving centers of power, were abandoned. Temples were left unfinished, stelae toppled, plazas overtaken by jungle. Why? Some say drought devastated the land, cutting harvests and starving cities. Others speak of warfare, of kingdoms turning upon one another until exhaustion set in. Still, others suggest overpopulation, soil exhaustion, collapse of trade. Whatever the cause, the silence spread. By the time Europeans arrived centuries later, the jungle had claimed the cities, and the people who remained lived in smaller towns. Their once great knowledge hidden in oral traditions and codices that conquerors burned to ash. The Maya did not vanish. Their descendants live still in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, carrying traditions, languages, and rituals. But the great cities, the towering temples, the keepers of time, they belong now to the forest and the wind. The whisper of the ruins. Walk through Tikal today, and you hear echoes. The cries of monkeys seem like drums, the call of birds like flutes. Climb the temples, and you see the jungle stretching endless, as it did for the Maya kings. Sit in the ball courts and imagine the games once played there, not sport but ritual, where the ball's movement mirrored the path of the sun, where victory and sacrifice intertwined. The ruins are not silent. They breathe with memory. They whisper of time itself, reminding us that civilizations, like cycles, rise and fall, return and fade, never ending, always turning. The Maya legacy. The Maya remind us that time is not linear, that endings are not endings, but transformations, that even when cities crumble, the rhythms of the cosmos remain. Their calendars outlasted their kings. Their mathematics and astronomy survived conquest. Even their myths endured fire, written down in the Popol Vuh, a sacred book that tells of creation, of hero twins who descended into the underworld and rose again. In those myths, as in their calendars, death is never final. Every ending is a new beginning. As you rest, close your eyes now and imagine lying in the plaza of Chichen Itza at dusk. The air is warm, scented with copal incense. Above you the stars emerge one by one, brilliant against the velvet sky. Slowly the shadow of the serpent creeps down the pyramid stairway, vanishing as the last light fades. Drums echo in the distance, voices chant in rhythm, and for a moment you feel time itself turning. Vast, eternal, endless. The Maya knew this truth, that we live within cycles, that our lives, our empires, our very civilizations are but breaths within the greater rhythm of the cosmos. And so, as their cities fell silent, time did not end, it turned, and from their ashes, new cycles began. The jungle closes behind us, but the rhythm of time remains. Ahead lies another empire of stone, one that rose high in the mountains, mastering earth and sky with ingenious precision. The Inca, builders of terraces, keepers of roads, guardians of the Andes. Their story waits beyond the next horizon. The Andes rise like a spine of the earth, snow-capped peaks piercing the sky, valleys carved deep by ancient rivers, slopes wrapped in clouds. Here, at altitudes where the air thins and the heart beats faster, the Inca built an empire. They called it Tuantinsuyu, the land of four quarters. Stretching from present-day Colombia to Chile, it was one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. Yet it thrived not in fertile plains or gentle valleys, but in mountains where survival itself seemed a miracle. The Inca did more than survive. They mastered the landscape. Cusco, the Puma city. At the heart of the Inca world stood Cusco. From above, its layout was said to form the shape of a puma, sacred animal of strength and guardianship. Streets radiated like arteries, plazas formed its heart, and temples crowned its head. At the city's centre rose the Coricancha, the temple of the sun. Its walls were once covered in sheets of gold that reflected the morning sun, dazzling the valley with fire. Inside, a great disk of gold captured the rays, illuminating statues of gods and offerings. Cusco was more than a capital. It was a cosmic hub, a centre where the earthly empire mirrored the celestial order. Roads extended outward like rays of the sun, linking the four quarters of the land. To walk those roads was to walk in rhythm with the cosmos. The road network, arteries of empire. The Inca roads stretched for more than 25,000 miles, a web across mountains, deserts, valleys, and coasts. Paved with stone, supported by walls, crossing rivers on suspension bridges woven of grass, they bound the empire together like sinews of a living body. Messengers called chasqui ran these roads tirelessly, relaying messages on foot. With lungs hardened by the altitude, they sprinted across peaks and valleys, carrying quipus and oral reports. A message could travel hundreds of miles in days, faster than horses could gallop in Europe. The roads were not just practical. They were sacred lines connecting Cusco to every corner of the empire, threads weaving human order into the wild fabric of the Andes. Terraces of life. Where slopes were too steep to farm, the Inca carved terraces into the mountainsides. These stone steps caught soil and rain, creating fields that shimmered with maize and potatoes. They transformed vertical cliffs into gardens, harnessing the sun, channeling water, stabilizing earth. Terraces were not only agricultural, they were aesthetic, harmonious with the mountains, making the Andes themselves appear sculpted by human hands. At Moai, terraces were carved into concentric circles descending like an amphitheatre. Scholars believe it was an agricultural laboratory, where microclimates allowed experiments with crops, testing how plants thrived in different conditions. Here, science and spirituality intertwined, the shaping of land as both devotion and innovation. Quipu, the cords of memory. Unlike the Maya or Egyptians, the Inca left no written texts. Instead, they recorded memory with quipus, bundles of cords knotted in patterns, each knot carrying numerical or symbolic meaning. A quipu might represent census data, tribute records, astronomical observations, even stories. Chasqui carried them as messages, and quipu keepers preserved the memory of the empire. To modernize, quipus seem simple, yet they encode a system of knowledge as intricate as writing, perhaps even more flexible. They remind us that literacy has many forms, and that memory can be woven as well as written. Machu Picchu, the hidden city. High above the Urubamba River, wrapped in mist and cloud, lies Machu Picchu. Its terraces cascade down slopes, its temples crown ridges, its stones blend seamlessly with mountain peaks. Discovered by outsiders only in 1911, it is often called the lost city of the Incas. Machu Picchu was not the empire's capital, nor its largest city. It may have been a royal retreat for Pachacuti, the great Inca ruler, yet its placement is breathtaking. The mountains rise around it like guardians, the river coils below like a serpent, and the structures align with solstices and stars. The Temple of the Sun curves in perfect stone, its windows capturing the solstice sunrise. The Intihuatana, a carved stone pillar, may have served as a solar observatory, a place where priests tied the sun to ensure its return. To walk among Machu Picchu's stones is to feel both serenity and awe. It is not a city of conquest, but of communion. Communion with mountain, sky and spirit. Stone without mortar, Inca masonry is legendary. Blocks of granite and andesite, some weighing many tons, were carved to fit together so precisely that no mortar was needed. The stones lock like puzzle pieces, irregular in shape yet perfectly aligned. This technique gave resilience. When earthquakes shook the Andes, lesser walls crumbled. Inca walls flexed, stones shifting slightly, then settling back into place. Even today they stand firm, mocking centuries of tremors. At Sacsayhuaman above Cusco, walls rise in zigzagging lines of enormous stones. Legends say they were placed by giants, or softened by divine forces. To touch them is to feel engineering fused with mystery, a union of skill and imagination that defies easy explanation. The cosmic order. The Inca saw the cosmos as a web of relationships. The earth, Pachamama, was a mother. The sky, Inti, was a father. Mountains were apus, living beings with spirit and power. Rivers were serpents. Stars were animals. Time itself was cyclical. Their empire was organized as a reflection of this order. The Nazca Lines radiating from Cusco connected not only roads, but sacred shrines. Hundreds of huacas aligned with stars, solstices, and rituals. To govern the land was to maintain balance between worlds, human, natural, divine. The fall. And yet, like all empires, Tawantinsuyu fell. In the 16th century, when the Spanish arrived, the Inca were torn by civil war. Brothers Atahualpa and Huasca battled for the throne, weakening the empire. The Spaniards, armed with steel, horses, and disease, exploited the division. They captured Atahualpa, executed him, and dismantled the empire piece by piece. Temples were stripped, roads neglected, quipus destroyed, gold melted into ingots. Yet even as the empire collapsed, the Inca spirit endured. Rebellions flared, legends grew, and the people carried fragments of tradition forward into centuries of resistance and survival. The whisper of endurance. Today, the descendants of the Inca still live in the Andes. They speak Quechua, tend terraces, weave patterns rich with cosmic meaning. They walk the same roads, cross the same mountains, carry memory in festivals, chants, and stories. The empire is gone, but its rhythm continues like a heartbeat beneath stone. The roads, terraces, and temples remain not as ruins, but as echoes, reminders that human ingenuity can carve life from impossible landscapes, and that spirit can endure long after kingdoms fall. As you drift, imagine standing at Machu Picchu at dawn. Mist curls along the ridges, The river murmurs far below. Slowly the sun rises, its rays piercing through clouds, striking the temple of the sun. The stone glows. Birds sing in the stillness. You breathe the thin air. The mountains press close, ancient and eternal. For a moment you feel as the Inca once did, that the world is alive, that every stone, every river, every star is connected in a vast web of meaning. You close your eyes and the city hums around you, timeless, serene, enduring. The Andes fade into shadow, but the mystery of stone remains. Now our path leads to another desert, where messages were etched not in temples, but upon the very earth. Lines that stretch for miles, visible only from the sky. The Nazca Lines. The desert of southern Peru is a place of stillness. Dry winds sweep across a plain of reddish earth, scattered with pebbles and stone. For most of the year, the sun blazes, rain almost never falls, and silence reigns. Yet hidden within this silence lies one of the greatest enigmas of the ancient world, the Nazca Lines. At ground level, they are nothing remarkable, shallow furrows carved into the soil, barely a few inches deep, stretching across the barren land. But rise into the air, and suddenly the desert becomes a canvas. Stretching for miles, vast figures appear, a monkey with a curling tail, a hummingbird poised in flight, a spider with delicate legs, a condor spreading its wings, hundreds of shapes, some geometric, others animal, some straight lines running for kilometers. Together, they form one of humanity's strangest and most haunting messages, a landscape of figures. The Nazca Lines cover nearly 500 square kilometers of desert plateau. Some are simple straight lines, crisscrossing like pathways for giants. Others form trapezoids, spirals, or intricate geometric webs. But it is the biomorphic figures that capture imagination, more than 70 animals and plants etched into the desert floor with uncanny precision. The hummingbird measures over 300 feet from beak to tail. The monkey curls in spirals across 190 feet. The spider stretches 150 feet, drawn with legs so thin that one misstep would erase them. They can only be truly seen from above, as though their makers intended them not for human eyes, but for gods, or for something that watched from the sky. The desert is canvas. How were they made? The method, at least, is simple. By removing the dark reddish stones that cover the desert surface, the lighter soil beneath was exposed, creating pale lines that contrast against the earth. With careful planning, ropes, and stakes, figures of enormous size could be drawn with surprising accuracy. What is extraordinary is not the technique, but the scale, the endurance, and the purpose. The lines have survived for more than 1,500 years, preserved by the desert's dryness and windlessness. But why create such vast images in a place where they could not be seen from the ground? The Nazca people, between 200 BCE and 600 CE, the Nazca culture flourished in this arid land. They built irrigation systems called puquillos to draw water from underground, painted ceramics with vivid designs, and wove textiles of extraordinary detail. But in their religion, nature reigned supreme. Water, fertility, animals, and celestial forces were sacred. Rituals sought to ensure rain, to appease deities, to maintain balance in a fragile world. The lines may have been part of this spiritual dialogue, vast prayers etched into the desert, offerings to gods of sky and water, theories and mysteries. Over the decades, countless theories have tried to explain the purpose of the Nazca Lines, astronomical calendar. Some researchers believe the lines align with solstices, equinoxes, and star risings. The shapes may have served as a giant observatory, tracking cycles of time and cosmos. Ritual pathways. Others suggest the lines were walked during ceremonies, processions tracing the figures as acts of devotion, perhaps invoking rainfall or fertility. Water cult. In a desert land, water is life. The trapezoids and spirals may have marked underground sources, or been offerings to deities controlling rain and rivers, messages to the gods. The sheer scale suggests the makers wanted their art to be seen from above. Were they meant for sky deities, for ancestors who watched from the heavens, or, as some modern imaginations propose, for visitors not of this earth? None of these theories are complete. Each explains part, but not all. And perhaps that is the true mystery, that the lines were many things at once: calendar, pathway, prayer, message, woven together in ways we can no longer separate. Maria Reicher, the Lady of the Lines. In the 20th century, A German mathematician named Maria Ricci devoted her life to the Nazca Lines. She mapped them tirelessly, crawling across the desert with measuring tape and notebook. She argued that they were an astronomical calendar, aligning with sun and stars. For 50 years she protected the lines, sweeping away debris, guarding them from vehicles and vandals. To the people of Nazca she became the Lady of the Lines. When she died in 1998, she was buried near them, her life bound to their silence. Her devotion reminds us that mystery is not always meant to be solved. Sometimes it is meant to be preserved, so that future generations can wonder. Walking among the figures, stand upon the desert floor. At your feet the line is barely more than a shallow trench. You cannot see the hummingbird, the monkey, the spider. You see only earth. Yet as you walk, you feel the immensity. You know you are part of a design larger than your sight. Perhaps that was the intention. To participate in ritual not by seeing, but by walking. To trace paths that mirrored the movements of gods, to enact prayers with the body itself. The lines were not merely images, they were journeys, seen from the sky, but then imagine rising. Not in a plane, as we do today, but in spirit. Or perhaps, as some legends whisper, in balloons. For experiments have shown that the Nazca may have been capable of crafting simple hot air balloons with woven cloth and fire. If so, then perhaps a few chosen priests once rose into the air, seeing the design spread across the desert like messages to the heavens. What did they feel, gazing down upon animals larger than villages, lines stretching across the horizon? Did they believe they had glimpsed the language of gods? The silence of meaning. The Nazca Lines do not explain themselves. They give us images, but not interpretations. They invite us to project our own meanings, to see calendars, pathways, prayers, or cosmic messages. Perhaps this is their power. They remind us that not all knowledge is explicit. Some knowledge is symbolic, intuitive, ritual. Some truths are felt, not written. As night falls on the desert, picture the Nazca Desert beneath the stars. The lines glow faintly in moonlight, pale scars against the dark earth. The constellations wheel above, mirrored by figures below. Monkey, condor, spider, hummingbird. It is as though heaven and earth reflect one another, the sky inscribing its shapes into the desert floor, the desert answering back with its own designs. A dialogue across worlds, written not in words but in lines of silence. You lie back upon the earth, the cold of stone beneath you, the vastness of stars above. You realize that the desert is not empty. It is a book, and its pages are written not for us, but for eternity. The Nazca remind us that meaning can be larger than sight, that messages can endure even when their readers are gone. Their lines stretch across centuries whispering, look, wonder, remember, and so, with questions unanswered, we leave the desert. Our path leads eastward, into the land between rivers, Mesopotamia, cradle of civilization, where writing was first carved into clay and kings sought immortality in the stars. Between the Tigris and the Euphrates, in a land of fertile soil and shifting floods, humanity built its first great cities. Here, in Mesopotamia, the long dawn of history broke. The word itself means the land between the rivers, yet it might also be called the land between worlds, for it was here that myth and memory, clay and cosmos, first intertwined. The first cities, 6,000 years ago, where reeds grew along riverbanks and canals crisscrossed fields, villages grew into cities. Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Kish, names carved into clay that still echo across time. Uruk, the greatest, was a city of walls and temples, of bustling markets and priests who measured the stars. Its population may have reached 50,000, immense for its age, a metropolis before the word existed. To walk its streets was to feel the pulse of a new kind of life, crowded, ordered, ambitious. Humanity had stepped into urbanity, into collective identity, into history. Writing on clay. It was here that writing was born. At first, tokens marked trade. A sheep, a bushel of grain, a jar of oil. Over time, symbols replaced objects, pressed into wet clay with a reed stylus. Lines and wedges formed cuneiform, the world's earliest script. With it, the Mesopotamians recorded taxes, laws, hymns, myths. Clay tablets became voices across centuries. They told of gods and kings, of floods and wars, of lovers and stars. Some were lists and numbers, others were poetry. Together, they transformed memory into permanence. In their wedge-shaped signs, humanity found a way to resist forgetting. The gods of the rivers. The Mesopotamian world was alive with gods: Anu, the Sky Father; Enlil, Lord of Storms; Inanna, goddess of love and war; Ea, god of water and wisdom. Each city had its patron deity, each temple a sacred dwelling where heaven touched earth. The ziggurat rose at the city's heart, a pyramid of steps crowned with a shrine. To ascend it was to approach the heavens, to bridge the distance between mortal and divine. Priests watched the stars from its heights, charting their rhythms, seeing in them the will of gods. The rivers too were divine. Their floods could nourish or destroy, blessing fields with silt or drowning them in fury. To live in Mesopotamia was to live in negotiation with forces larger than oneself, both earthly and cosmic. The Epic of Gilgamesh. From these lands came one of the oldest surviving stories, the Epic of Gilgamesh. It tells of a king of Uruk, 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, who sought immortality. Gilgamesh, proud and restless, tamed the wild man Enkidu, and together they defied gods, slew monsters, and explored the edges of the world. But when Enkidu died, Gilgamesh's heart broke. He set out on a quest to escape death, seeking Utnapishtim, survivor of the Great Flood who had been granted eternal life. In the end, Gilgamesh failed. He returned to Uruk, realizing that immortality lay not in endless breath, but in legacy, in walls built, in stories told, in the city itself. The epic is more than a tale. It is humanity's first meditation on mortality, on memory, on meaning. It whispers across 4,000 years the same questions we still ask. Why do we die? How do we endure? The flood that remembers. Within Gilgamesh lies another story, a flood that destroyed the world. Utnapishtim tells how the gods, angered by humanity's clamour, sent waters to drown the earth. But Ea, the wise, warned him. He built a great boat sealed with pitch, carrying animals and family. The waters came, the boat survived, and life began anew. The echo is unmistakable. Later the story would reappear in the Hebrew Bible as Noah's flood, in Greek myth as Deucalions, in countless traditions across cultures. Perhaps it is memory, of real floods that swept Mesopotamia, or of rising seas at the end of the Ice Age. Myth or memory, it endures. It reminds us that water is both life and death, blessing and curse, creation and destruction. The Code of Hammurabi. Around 1750 BCE, Hammurabi, king of Babylon, inscribed laws upon stone. The Code of Hammurabi, one of history's earliest legal codes, still survives, carved into black basalt. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So reads its most famous phrase. Yet it also recorded contracts, wages, property, family matters. Law was no longer the whim of kings, but something enduring, written, visible to all. The code's prologue says Hammurabi was chosen by the gods to cause justice to prevail in the land, to destroy the wicked, and that the strong might not oppress the weak. It was both governance and theology, order inscribed in stone. Stars and signs. Mesopotamian priests watched the night sky with devotion. They mapped constellations, tracked planets, and divided the heavens into the 12 houses of the zodiac. They saw omens in eclipses, comets, and conjunctions, believing the sky reflected the fate of kings and cities. From their observations grew both astronomy and astrology. They calculated calendars, predicted eclipses, and linked human destiny to cosmic cycles. To them the universe was a dialogue, written in stars as well as clay. The fragility of greatness. Yet the civilizations of Mesopotamia were fragile. Floods, invasions, and shifting powers tore through them. Sumer gave way to Akkad, Akkad to Babylon, Babylon to Assyria, Assyria back to Babylon, then to Persia. Cities rose, empires fell, gods were renamed, but the land endured. A cradle that rocked civilizations into being, then buried them in its soil. Even their libraries were fragile. The great library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh once held thousands of clay tablets. Many were burned when the city fell, but in burning they were baked hard, preserved for us. Among them we found Gilgamesh, omens, laws, and myths. Fragments of memory saved by fire. The whisper of clay. Hold a clay tablet in your hands. It is small, rough, inscribed with wedge-shaped marks. Yet in those marks lies a voice across millennia. Perhaps it records the sale of sheep, the wages of a worker, or the prayer of a priest. Clay is humble. It crumbles. It dries. It breaks. Yet through clay, humanity first learned to write. Through clay, memory became more than breath. The fragility of tablets reminds us of our own fragility, and yet their survival reminds us of endurance. As you drift, imagine lying beside the Tigris at night. The water murmurs softly. The air is cool. Above you the sky stretches vast, the same constellations the priests once charted. In the distance, you hear the faint sound of reed flutes, the rustle of palms, the laughter of children. Somewhere in Uruk, a scribe dips his stylus into clay, pressing marks that will carry his thoughts thousands of years forward. Somewhere in Babylon, a king dreams of justice carved into stone. Somewhere in a temple, priests climb a ziggurat, whispering to the stars, and you, drifting in twilight, realize that the cradle of civilization is not only a place, but a moment. The moment when humanity first reached beyond survival to seek meaning. Mesopotamia gave us writing, law, myth, astronomy. It gave us memory itself, and from its rivers we now turn eastward, toward another ancient land of mystery, a valley where great cities rose, where seals and symbols remain unread, where silence itself is a riddle. The Indus Valley, the civilization without a voice. Between the mountains of the north and the deserts of the west, along the winding Indus River, another civilization once thrived. At the same time that Sumerians raised their ziggurats and Egyptians built their pyramids, the people of the Indus Valley were carving their own chapter of history. They built vast cities with straight streets, advanced drainage, and brick houses aligned with careful order. They traded with far lands, cultivated fields, and crafted seals etched with animals and symbols. Yet they left no deciphered writing, no kings' names, no epic poems. Their voices remain locked in silence, and so the Indus Valley is both one of the greatest civilizations of antiquity and one of the most mysterious. Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead. On the banks of the Indus lies Mohenjo-Daro, a city that once held tens of thousands. Its ruins today are a labyrinth of baked brick walls, streets that run in grids, and buildings aligned with startling precision. At its centre lies the Great Bath, a pool built of brick sealed with bitumen, fed by wells, drained with skill. Around it rose buildings that may have been temples, halls, or public spaces. The bath seems not a place of leisure, but of ritual. Perhaps purification, perhaps ceremony, perhaps communion with water, the source of life. The streets of Mohenjo-Daro were straight, intersecting at right angles. Houses had private wells and bathrooms. Underground drains carried waste away. A level of urban planning that would not be equalled in many parts of the world for millennia. Walking through its ruins today, you feel the presence of order, of intention. A city not grown by chance, but planned with vision. Harappa, the twin capital. Further north lay Harappa, another great city of the Indus world. Like Mohenjo-Daro, it held granaries, wells, workshops, and homes. Together, these two cities may have been twin centres of a vast culture stretching across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. Harappa too reveals careful planning, standardised bricks, uniform weights and measures, evidence of centralised authority. Yet no palaces dominate the ruins, no grand tombs proclaim the glory of kings. The power of the Indus seems to have been quieter, more collective, less centred on monarchs than on community. This absence of royal monuments is perhaps their greatest enigma. Who ruled these cities? What stories did they tell of their gods, their heroes, their destinies? The silence endures, the undeciphered script. Across the ruins of the Indus, small seals have been found, square pieces of steatite carved with images of animals and lines of symbols, unicorn-like creatures, bulls, elephants, tigers, birds. Beneath them, inscriptions of a script we cannot read. The script appears on thousands of artifacts, seals, pottery, tablets. It is composed of short sequences of signs, sometimes only a few characters, never long texts. Was it a language, a set of symbols, a code of trade and ritual? For more than a century, scholars have tried to decipher it. Some claim it was a full language, others that it was a symbolic system, closer to icons than words. Without a bilingual text like the Rosetta Stone that unlocked Egyptian hieroglyphs, its meaning remains hidden. The seals speak, but we cannot hear. They are words lost to time, whispering in silence, trade and connection. Yet even in silence, the Indus Valley speaks through artifacts. Beads of carnelian and lapis lazuli, shells from distant seas, cotton textiles, copper tools. Their goods reached Mesopotamia. Indus seals have been found in Sumerian cities. The people of the Indus were not isolated. They were part of a network that stretched across mountains and deserts, rivers and seas. Their merchants carried goods and ideas. Their cities hummed with activity. Their culture touched lands far away. This interconnectedness suggests a sophistication of governance, of economy, of vision. They were not primitive, they were cosmopolitan. The mystery of religion. What gods did they worship? Their seals show figures that may be deities. A horned man seated in yogic posture, surrounded by animals. Perhaps a proto-form of Shiva, lord of beasts and meditation. Female figurines suggest devotion to fertility, to the Great Mother. Symbols of trees, animals and sacred fires hint at a cosmology tied to nature, to cycles of life and death. Yet without texts, we cannot know for certain. Their rituals, myths, prayers are shadows. Their gods are veiled. Their religion remains one of the great mysteries of antiquity. The fall of the cities. Around 1900 BCE, the great cities began to decline. Streets grew empty, baths fell silent, drains clogged. By 1500 BCE, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were abandoned. Why? Some suggest climate change. Rivers shifting course, floods and droughts breaking the balance of water. Others propose overuse of land, collapse of trade, or invasion by nomadic peoples. But as with so much in the Indus Valley, the answer is silence. The cities fell but left no record of their fall. Only bricks and seals remain, mute and enduring. The haunting silence. This silence is perhaps what makes the Indus Valley so powerful. We know they were advanced. We see their planning, their technology, their reach. And yet we do not know their names, their kings, their myths. They stand as a reminder that not all greatness leaves words. Their silence is not absence. It is presence of another kind. The presence of mystery, of questions unanswered, of stories we can only imagine. Legacy and echoes. Though the Indus cities vanished, their echoes linger. Some traditions of South Asia may carry fragments of their memory. Worship of fertility goddesses, reverence for rivers, meditative postures resembling yoga. Perhaps the roots of later Hinduism lie partly in the soil of the Indus. Archaeology continues to uncover more. Lost towns, hidden canals, new seals. Each discovery deepens the puzzle. Each fragment reminds us that history is larger than memory. As you drift, imagine standing in the great bath of Mohenjo-Daro at twilight. The pool is empty now, its bricks crumbling, but once it was filled with water, gleaming beneath torches. Priests and people may have gathered here, stepping into the pool for ritual, for cleansing, for communion. The air is silent, the city abandoned. Yet close your eyes, and you hear faint sounds. Water splashing, voices chanting, footsteps along straight streets. The city breathes again, in memory if not in flesh. You realize that silence itself can be sacred, that a civilization can endure not in words but in mystery. The Indus Valley leaves us questions without answers, whispers without voices. It reminds us that history is fragile, that memory can vanish, but also that mystery endures. From here, our path leads eastward, to jungles and temples of stone rising from moats and waterways. To Angkor, the city of gods and kings, where water and stone once bound an empire to the heavens. The jungle of Cambodia is thick and restless. Cicadas hum like hidden machines. The air smells of damp earth and lotus blossoms, and vines twist around ancient stones. Push aside the leaves, and suddenly towers rise from the canopy, stone spires carved with faces serene and smiling, gazing in every direction. This is Angkor, once the beating heart of the Khmer Empire, the largest city of the medieval world. A metropolis of water and stone, temples and reservoirs, it was built not only to rule the earth, but to mirror the heavens. The Empire of Angkor. From the 9th to the 15th century, the Khmer kings ruled much of Southeast Asia. Their empire stretched across what is now Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. At its heart lay Angkor, a city so vast that it may have housed 1 million people, larger than London or Paris of the same time. Unlike other cities, Angkor was not built beside a river alone. It was a city of waterworks, moats, canals, and vast reservoirs called barays. These artificial lakes glistened like mirrors, storing monsoon rains, feeding rice fields, and symbolizing the cosmic ocean that surrounded the world in Hindu cosmology. Stone temples rose above these waters like mountains rising from seas, reflections of Mount Meru, the sacred axis of the universe. Angkor was not just a capital, it was a map of the cosmos, etched into jungle and stone. Angkor Wat, the temple of the world. The most famous of Angkor's temples is Angkor Wat. At dawn, its silhouette appears against the sky, lotus-shaped towers mirrored in still water. It is the largest religious monument ever built, covering more than 400 acres. Dedicated first to Vishnu, the preserver, Angkor Wat is a symphony of stone. Galleries stretch with carvings of gods and demons, celestial dancers called apsaras, scenes from the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Its walls are alive with myth. Battles of gods churning the ocean of milk, warriors riding elephants into war, kings ascending to divinity. Yet Angkor Wat is also an observatory. Its towers align with solstices and equinoxes. On the spring equinox, the sun rises directly over its central tower, a spectacle of cosmic precision. It was temple, calendar, cosmos, all carved into sandstone. To walk its corridors is to feel lost in both time and eternity. The air is heavy, the carvings endless, the silence broken only by the sound of your own footsteps echoing among the stones. Beyond the smiling faces, further north rises Angkor Thom, the great city. At its centre stands Bayon, a temple unlike any other. Its towers are carved with more than 200 faces, each serene, each smiling faintly, each gazing outward in all directions. Are they the faces of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, embodiment of compassion? Or are they portraits of King Jayavarman VII himself, deified, watching over his empire with divine serenity? To walk through Bayon is to feel watched, not with judgment, but with calm benevolence. The smiles follow you, ancient and enigmatic, as if whispering that all suffering is illusion, that peace lies in surrender. In the golden light of evening, when shadows stretch and faces glow softly, Bayon feels alive, a city of stone souls gazing across centuries. Water as power. Angkor was not only stone, it was water. The Khmer engineered a hydraulic system of astonishing scale, canals hundreds of kilometres long, reservoirs large enough to dwarf modern lakes. These works captured monsoon rains, stored them, and distributed them year-round, feeding rice fields that sustained millions. This mastery of water was both practical and symbolic. To control water was to control life itself. To flood fields was to ensure abundance. To build beres was to reflect the cosmic seas of Hindu mythology. When you stand upon the banks of the West Beret, 8 kilometres long and 2 kilometres wide, you realise it was not only irrigation, it was cosmology carved into landscape, the world remade in water, a city of dancers and gods. The stones of Angkor are alive with carvings. Thousands of apsaras and celestial dancers ought to adorn its walls. Their smiles are playful, their poses graceful, their jewellery delicate. They are frozen in dance, yet still seem to move, as if the stone itself remembers rhythm. The temples also hold scenes of gods and demons, of kings and battles, of myths stretching across time. The churning of the ocean of milk, a myth of creation, is carved in 160 metres of sandstone at Angkor Wat. Gods and demons pull on a serpent wound around a mountain, churning the cosmic sea to release nectar of immortality. The story is both myth and metaphor, of struggle and renewal, of opposites working together to create life. Angkor was theatre, myth, ritual, and power made solid. Its walls told stories so that even stone could sing. The fall of Angkor, yet even the greatest cities are fragile. By the 15th century, Angkor began to decline. Climate shifted, monsoons failed, drought and floods alternated, straining the water system. Enemies attacked, internal strife grew. The city that had been the largest in the world slowly emptied. Jungle crept in, vines split stone, towers crumbled. By the time Western explorers stumbled upon it centuries later, Angkor was a ghost. A forest of ruins, a memory hidden in silence. Rediscovery. In the 19th century, French explorers publicised Angkor to the outside world. To them, it was a wonder, a lost city. Yet it was never truly lost. Local people had always lived among its ruins, worshipping at its temples, keeping memory alive. Today, Angkor is a symbol of Cambodia, its silhouette emblazoned on the national flag. Millions visit its temples each year, walking through its corridors, standing in awe before its towers. Yet even as tourists flood its stones, the mystery remains. Who first conceived such scale? How did engineers build canals and berets so vast with simple tools? How did carvers cover every surface with myth? What did the faces of Bayon mean to those who once looked upon them? Angkor endures as both marvel and riddle. As you drift, close your eyes, imagine the jungle at dawn, mist curls above the moat. Monks in saffron robes walk in silence, their chants echoing softly. The first light of the sun strikes Angkor Wat, bathing its towers in gold. The apsaras on the walls shimmer as though alive. The faces of Bayon smile as though amused by time itself. Water laps gently against stone, reflecting sky. You walk through endless corridors, each step leading deeper into myth, deeper into silence. The jungle hums around you, ancient yet eternal. And you feel Angkor's truth, that stone and water together can create not just a city, but a universe. Angkor whispers of power, beauty and impermanence. It rose as the largest city of its time, only to fall to silence. Yet in its ruins it still mirrors the cosmos, still carries memory in stone and water. From here our path leads further east, into another ancient realm, China, land of dynasties and philosophies, of inventions that reshaped the world, of walls that stretch like dragons across mountains. The Middle Kingdom awaits. Across rivers and mountains, deserts and seas, lies a land whose history stretches like a great river, winding, unbroken, ever-flowing. The Chinese call it Zhongguo, the Middle Kingdom, the centre of heaven and earth. For thousands of years, dynasties have risen and fallen here, leaving behind walls that stretch across mountains, philosophies that shaped nations, and inventions that transformed the world. Yet beneath the weight of its grandeur, China is also a land of myth and silence, of secrets sealed within tombs, of wisdom carved into bamboo slips and forgotten in caves. To enter its story is to enter a labyrinth where history and legend entwine, where emperors seek immortality and sages whisper of balance between heaven and man. The Yellow River, cradle of dynasty. The Yellow River, the Huanghe, is called the Mother of China. Along its fertile banks, villages first planted millet, herded animals and crafted pottery. Over time, they became kingdoms. By the 2nd millennium BCE, the Shang dynasty ruled from cities fortified with walls, their rulers casting bronze vessels of haunting beauty, inscribed with characters that would evolve into the script still used today. The Shang divined the future on oracle bones, heating turtle shells until they cracked, reading the fissures as messages from the ancestors. These bones, inscribed with early Chinese characters, are among the oldest written records in East Asia. They whisper of kings and sacrifices, of rituals binding the living to the dead. From the Shang, the Zhou rose. They brought the mandate of heaven, the idea that rulers reigned not by blood alone but by moral order. If a king was just, heaven granted him power. If he faltered, heaven withdrew its mandate and rebellion became divine duty. This belief wove morality into politics, shaping dynasties for centuries to come. The Great Wall, a dragon of stone, stretching for thousands of miles across northern China, the Great Wall winds over mountains, deserts and plains. Built and rebuilt by many dynasties, it was meant to hold back nomadic raiders from the steppes. Yet it was more than defence. From above it resembles a dragon curling across the land, a symbol of power and protection. Watchtowers punctuate its length, signalling with fire and smoke. Soldiers once marched its paths, scanning the horizon for horsemen. To stand upon the wall at dusk is to feel both awe and fragility. It is a monument to human determination, but also to fear. It reminds us that every civilization, no matter how mighty, has boundaries it seeks to guard, horizons it cannot cross without danger. Philosophies of balance. While emperors built walls, sages sought harmony. In the 6th century BCE, Confucius taught that order began with virtue. Rulers must be just, children must honour parents, society must be woven with respect and duty. His Analects became a guidebook not only for governance but for life. In the same era, Laozi spoke of the Tao, the way, an unseen order flowing through all things. To follow the Tao was not to impose will, but to move with the current of the universe, to find harmony in simplicity, humility and balance. Later, Buddhism arrived from India, bringing new visions of compassion, meditation, and the cycle of rebirth. In China, it mingled with Taoist mysticism and Confucian ethics, creating a tapestry of thought that shaped both spirit and state. These philosophies were not only ideas, they became rhythms of life, guiding art, architecture, gardens, and governance. They remain threads in the fabric of China today. Inventions that shaped the world. The Chinese were masters of invention. Paper was born here, made from mulberry bark and hemp. With it, knowledge spread beyond fragile bamboo slips and costly silk. Printing followed, first woodblock, then movable type, carrying words to countless readers. Gunpowder too was discovered, first as an alchemical pursuit of immortality, later as the powder that shook battlefields. The compass, guided by the mysterious pull of the earth, led sailors across seas. Porcelain, silk and tea became treasures carried along the Silk Road, weaving China into the global story. Each invention was more than utility. Paper carried philosophy. Printing spread faith. Gunpowder transformed empires. Compass and silk carried both commerce and culture. In these inventions, the Middle Kingdom extended itself beyond its borders, whispering across continents. The first emperor and the Terracotta Army. In 221 BCE, Qin Shi Huang unified the warring states into one empire. He standardized script, currency and weights, built roads and canals, and began the Great Wall's consolidation. Yet his reign was also harsh, marked by forced labor and burning of books. Obsessed with immortality, he sent expeditions seeking elixirs, and alchemists promised him secrets of eternal life. In the end, he died like all men. But his tomb near Xi'an still guards his dream of eternity. Discovered in 1974, the Terracotta Army, thousands of life-size warriors buried in battle formation, stand watch over his resting place. Each soldier unique in face and armor, they were meant to protect him in the afterlife. The tomb itself remains sealed, said to contain rivers of mercury flowing like liquid silver. To enter it may be to uncover wonders, or curses, still hidden beneath earth. The first emperor's quest reminds us of the paradox of power, to rule the world yet fear death, to build eternity in clay yet fall to time. Forbidden secrets. Centuries later, the Ming dynasty raised the Forbidden City in Beijing, a palace of red walls and golden roofs aligned with cosmic order. Within its courtyards, emperors lived as sons of heaven, secluded from the common world, ruling through ritual as much as decree. Yet outside its gates, alchemists, monks and sages whispered of hidden arts, inner alchemy of breath and energy, elixirs brewed in secret furnaces, scrolls sealed in caves. Some sought immortality, others enlightenment, others harmony with the Tao. Much was lost. Some survived, hidden in temples and mountains, waiting for rediscovery. China's history is not only dynasties and wars. It is a tradition of hidden knowledge, layered and veiled like mist curling over mountains. Cycles of rise and fall. The story of China is not one empire, but many. Han, Tang, Song, Ming, Qing. Dynasties rising like waves, shining, then fading. Each claimed the mandate of heaven, each eventually lost it. Rebellion, famine, invasion, collapse. Then renewal, rebirth, new dynasties rising again. It is a rhythm as old as time, a cycle of order and chaos, of unity and division. To the Chinese mind, history is not linear but circular, a wheel turning endlessly, much like the Tao itself. The whispers of continuity. What makes China unique is its continuity. Though dynasties fell, though invasions came, the culture endured. The script evolved but remained legible across millennia. Philosophy shifted but continued to guide. Villages tilled the same soil. Ancestors were honoured at the same altars. Festivals lit the same lanterns. It is as if the Middle Kingdom was not merely a political state but a living organism, adapting, reshaping, yet never dying. As you drift, imagine standing upon the Great Wall beneath a full moon. The stones glow pale, the mountains stretch like waves frozen in shadow. In the distance, torches flicker. You hear wind whistling, carrying whispers of soldiers long gone. Then imagine walking the halls of the Forbidden City at dawn. The courtyards are silent, the roofs gleam gold, the sky pale with morning. You feel the weight of ritual, the echo of emperors, the silence of secrets. Or imagine holding a slip of bamboo inscribed with characters, words of Confucius, reminding you of virtue and balance. You realize you're touching a voice across thousands of years. China is not only empire, it is memory. It is continuity. It is a river that flows endlessly, carrying fragments of all that came before. China shows us that civilizations can endure, not only through power, but through philosophy, culture, and rhythm. Yet even the Middle Kingdom, with all its grandeur, is but one chapter in the human story. Now let us turn westward once more to the Mediterranean, where philosophers debated beneath colonnades, where mathematicians drew figures in sand, where myths of gods and heroes shaped the world. Ancient Greece awaits, land of wisdom, myth, and wonder. The Aegean Sea glitters like scattered silver, islands rising from its waves like the backs of sleeping gods. Olive trees dot the hillsides, their leaves shimmering in the wind. White marble gleams beneath a sun that has witnessed millennia. This is Greece, land of philosophers and poets, heroes and gods, where the human mind reached upward toward truth, and the human spirit carved myths that still breathe in our imagination. The gift of myth. Long before philosophers spoke of logic, the Greeks told stories. Myths filled their world with meaning. Zeus, lord of thunder, Athena, goddess of wisdom, Apollo, radiant archer of the sun, Dionysus, god of wine and ecstasy. Mount Olympus was not just a mountain. It was a palace of immortals, a reflection of human passions magnified. The gods loved, quarrelled, envied, betrayed, and forgave, their dramas mirroring the struggles of mortals. These myths were more than tales. They were explanations of nature, reflections of morality, metaphors of inner life. When Persephone descended into Hades and returned each spring, she was not only a goddess, she was the cycle of crops, the rhythm of seasons, the promise of renewal. Myth was philosophy and poetry, truth wrapped in story, the birth of philosophy. But the Greeks were not content with myth alone. In the 6th century BCE, in the city of Miletus, thinkers began to ask questions not of gods, but of nature itself. Thales looked to water as the origin of all things. Anaximander spoke of the apeiron, the boundless, infinite. Soon, Socrates walked the streets of Athens, asking questions so piercing that his fellow citizens condemned him. His disciple Plato wrote dialogues exploring justice, love, reality itself. Plato's student Aristotle classified the world, from plants to stars, shaping science for centuries. Philosophy, born in Greece, was a fire lit in the human mind, the flame of wisdom. It asked not only what is but why, not only how to live but how to live well. The polis, city of citizens. Greece was a land of city-states, or polis, Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes, each a world of its own. Athens was the cradle of democracy, where citizens gathered in the assembly to vote, debate, and shape policy. Sparta was its opposite, a warrior state where discipline and strength ruled, where boys were trained from childhood to serve as soldiers. The diversity of the Greek city-states shows us that civilization is not one path but many. Yet together they shared language, festivals, gods, and games. Every 4 years, Greeks gathered at Olympia to honour Zeus with athletic contests, laying down arms to compete in peace. The polis was more than a city. It was a vision of community, of shared identity, of humans as political beings, bound not only by blood but by law and participation. The theatre of life. The Greeks invented theatre as we know it. In amphitheatres carved into hillsides, citizens gathered to watch tragedies and comedies that explored the depths of human fate. Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, their plays told of kings undone by pride, heroes caught in webs of destiny, gods whose will clashed with human desire. Tragedy was not mere entertainment. It was ritual, reflection, catharsis, a purging of fear and pity. Comedy too had its place. Aristophanes mocked politicians, philosophers, and even the gods, reminding the people that laughter is also wisdom. The theatre was a mirror where society looked at itself, where questions of justice, fate, and freedom were enacted beneath the open sky. The beauty of form. Greek art sought harmony, balance, proportion. Sculptors carved bodies with grace and realism, celebrating human form as divine. Temples rose with columns precise in ratio, their lines subtly curved to create illusions of perfection. The Parthenon in Athens, dedicated to Athena, remains a symbol of this ideal. Its marble columns glow golden at sunset. Its friezes depict myths of gods and heroes. Its geometry whispers of a search for eternal beauty. To the Greeks, beauty was not vanity. It was a reflection of order, of truth, of the cosmos itself. The Age of Empire. In the 4th century BCE, Alexander of Macedon, called the Great, swept across the known world. From Greece to Egypt, Persia to India, his armies carved an empire vast and fleeting. With him travelled Greek culture, language, art, philosophy, blending with traditions of East and West. The Hellenistic age that followed was one of synthesis, Greek thought mingling with Egyptian, Persian and Indian wisdom. Cities like Alexandria became centres of learning, where scholars studied stars, dissected bodies, and collected knowledge in libraries of vast ambition. Though Alexander's empire fractured, the spark of Greek culture spread far, carried by his conquests into lands that never forgot. The fragility of greatness, yet like all civilizations, Greece was fragile. Wars between city-states drained its strength. Sparta defeated Athens but soon fell itself. Eventually Rome rose, conquering Greece, absorbing its culture. But though Greece lost independence, it never lost influence. Rome built with Greek forms, wrote with Greek ideas, worshipped Greek gods under new names. Even as a province, Greece remained a teacher to the world. The eternal flame. What is Greece's legacy? It is many things. Myth that explains, philosophy that questions, art that idealizes, politics that empowers. It is tragedy and comedy, democracy and empire, beauty and reason. Above all, it is the flame of wisdom, the belief that the human mind can seek truth, that the human spirit can shape meaning, that knowledge is a gift both fragile and eternal. As you drift, imagine sitting in the theatre of Epidaurus as twilight falls. The air is cool, the marble seats worn by centuries. On stage, actors in masks chant lines from Sophocles. The words rise into the night, echoing off hills, echoing into your heart. Then imagine walking the steps of the Parthenon at dawn. The marble glows with first light. The city of Athens spreads below. The sea glimmers beyond. You feel the weight of centuries and the lightness of wisdom. Or imagine listening to Socrates in the marketplace, his questions disarming, his voice gentle, his presence luminous. You realize wisdom is not answers, but the courage to ask. Greece whispers still. In every myth we tell, in every play we perform, in every question we ask of truth, we echo its voice. The flame it lit still burns, flickering in our thoughts, guiding us through shadows. And now our path leads westward, across the Mediterranean to another empire, one that built roads and aqueducts, laws and armies, that carried Greek wisdom and added its own might. Rome awaits, the empire of stone and law, of ambition and collapse, whose ruins still dominate the world. The Tiber River winds through gentle hills, carrying with it the reflections of ancient bridges and broken arches. On its banks rose a city of shepherds and kings, a republic of citizens and senators, an empire of legions and emperors. Rome, the eternal city, was not built in a day, but once built it sought to last forever. And though its empires crumbled, its stones still whisper, its laws still govern, its vision of power and order still shapes the world. From village to republic, legend says Rome began with twins, Romulus and Remus, children of Mars abandoned by a river, suckled by a she-wolf. Romulus, after quarrelling with his brother, founded the city that bore his name. Myth or memory, it gave Rome its origin in violence and destiny. By the 6th century BCE, Rome was a cluster of villages on 7 hills. Kings ruled, but the people grew restless. They cast out their monarchs and formed a republic. In this republic, power lay in the Senate, where patricians debated, and in assemblies where citizens voted. Rome's genius was not only in arms but in governance. It created offices, checks, balances. It built a system that allowed expansion without losing unity. Though imperfect, slaves had no voice, and plebeians struggled for rights. The republic embodied an idea, that law, not kings, should rule. The legions. Rome's strength lay also in its legions. Citizen soldiers, disciplined and trained, marched across Italy, then beyond. Their shields locked in formation, their swords thrust with precision. They built roads as they marched, leaving behind arteries of empire. Each legion carried not only weapons but order. Camps were laid out with the same precision as cities, streets, squares, temples, baths. Where the legions went, Rome followed. The eagle standard rose above them, symbol of empire, pride of soldiers. To lose it in battle was shame, to carry it was glory. Conquest and assimilation. Rome conquered not by destruction alone, but by absorption. Defeated peoples were often granted citizenship or partial rights. Their gods were welcomed into Rome's pantheon, their cultures woven into Roman life. By this openness, Rome grew vast. From Spain to Syria, from Britain to Egypt, its empire stretched across 3 continents. Roads, aqueducts, laws, and Latin bound it together. A merchant from Gaul could walk the same streets, pray in the same temples, and appeal to the same law as a citizen of Rome itself. Rome was not only conquest, it was assimilation. Law as legacy. If Greece gave philosophy, Rome gave law. The 12 tables codified rights and duties. Jurists debated contracts, property, inheritance. Principles of fairness, equity, and precedent emerged. Roman law outlived Rome itself. When the empire fell, its legal tradition endured, shaping Europe, echoing even into modern codes. To this day, in courts around the world, echoes of Roman law remain. Rome's true empire was not only land, but justice written into words, the splendour of stone. Walk through Rome at its height, and you would see stone transformed into wonder. The Colosseum, vast amphitheatre, held 50,000 spectators. Beneath its arena lay chambers where gladiators and animals waited. Blood was spilled here, yes, but also spectacle. Naval battles reenacted, dramas staged, crowds roaring. The aqueducts stretched across valleys, carrying water for fountains, baths, and homes. Their arches stand still, silent rivers of stone. The forum buzzed with life, senators debating, merchants trading, priests sacrificing, orators proclaiming. Temples rose to Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Marble gleamed, columns towered, statues lined the streets. Rome was not modest. It built as if eternity itself were its patron. The Pax Romana. Under Augustus, Rome entered its golden age, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For 2 centuries, roads were secure, seas patrolled, provinces governed with stability. Trade flourished, ideas spread. In this time, poets sang of empire. Virgil wrote the Aeneid, linking Rome's origins to Troy, claiming destiny itself had ordained Rome to rule. Imperium sine fine, empire without end. Yet even as poets praised eternity, the seeds of fragility grew. For no empire, however vast, escapes time. The shadow of decadence. Over centuries, Rome grew decadent. Wealth flowed, but inequality widened. Slaves laboured, while elites indulged. Bread and circuses pacified the masses but could not mask decline. Emperors rose and fell, some wise, some cruel, some mad. Caligula demanded worship as a god. Nero fiddled while Rome burned, or so legend claims. Domitian ruled with fear. Yet others, Trajan, Marcus Aurelius, sought justice, philosophy, and service. The empire was a mirror of humanity itself, noble and base, wise and foolish, strong and fragile. The coming of new faith. In the 1st century, in a province far from Rome, a new faith was born. Christianity, once persecuted, grew within the empire's veins. By the 4th century, Constantine embraced it, building churches, moving the capital to Constantinople. The old gods faded, crosses rose. Rome transformed not only politically but spiritually, becoming a vessel for a faith that would shape the next millennium. The fall. By the 5th century, pressures mounted. Barbarians pressed at the frontiers. The economy faltered. The legions, once invincible, weakened. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire fell, its last emperor deposed. Yet Rome did not die. In the east, Byzantium endured for 1,000 more years. In the west, Roman roads, laws, and language remained. The dream of Rome haunted kings and popes, emperors and nations. To call oneself Roman was to claim legitimacy. Rome was gone but never gone. The eternal city. Walk Rome today, and you walk in layers of time. The Colosseum looms, broken yet mighty. The Forum lies in ruins, yet its stones still speak. The Pantheon's dome still opens to the sky, an eye gazing at eternity. Fountains bubble, piazzas hum, churches rise above ancient temples. Rome is both ruin and life, memory and presence. It is eternal not because it never fell, but because it never ceased to whisper. As you drift, imagine sitting in the Colosseum at dawn when the arena is empty, the air cool, the arches glowing with early light. You hear no roar of crowds, no clash of gladiators, only silence. Yet in that silence, you feel the presence of centuries. Or picture walking along the Appian Way, stones worn smooth by countless feet. Tombs and ruins line the road, but the horizon stretches still, as if empire continues. Or stand in the Pantheon beneath its dome, light streaming through the oculus. The air is hushed. You feel both small and infinite, part of the cosmos that the dome mirrors. Rome's empire ended, but its stone and law remain. It reminds us that power fades, but memory endures. That civilizations die, yet their voices echo in marble, in language, in justice. Now, as we leave Rome's ruins, we turn to another library. One not of stone but of scrolls. A place where knowledge itself was gathered with ambition to preserve all that humanity knew. A library lost in fire, remembered in longing. Alexandria. The Mediterranean sparkles with morning light, waves lapping gently at the Egyptian coast. In the distance rises a city, Alexandria, founded by Alexander the Great, named for him, built to be a beacon of knowledge and trade. Here, on the edge of Africa, Europe and Asia, stood one of the most legendary institutions of the ancient world, the Library of Alexandria. A place where the wisdom of humanity was gathered, where scrolls lined shelves in endless corridors, where scholars dreamed of capturing all knowledge under one roof. The library has long since vanished, its scrolls turned to ash, its shelves empty. Yet its memory endures as symbol of ambition, of fragility, of the eternal human longing to preserve thought against the silence of time. The dream of collection, the Library of Alexandria was founded in the 3rd century BCE under Ptolemy X, successor of Alexander. Its goal was nothing less than to gather every book, every scroll, every fragment of knowledge from across the known world. Ships that docked in Alexandria were searched. Their scrolls were seized, copied and stored. Ambassadors were ordered to collect texts from their homelands, copies of Homer, histories of Egypt, treatises on medicine, astronomy, mathematics and philosophy. All were brought here. The dream was universal memory, that no word, no discovery, no myth or calculation would be lost, that human knowledge could be bound together, eternal. The Mausion, home of the Muses. The library was part of the Mausion, a temple to the 9 Muses, goddesses of art and learning. Scholars lived there, supported by the state, free to study, experiment and teach. They dined together, discussed ideas, dissected animals, mapped stars. Among them was Euclid, whose elements shaped geometry for millennia. Archimedes studied here, discovering principles of levers, buoyancy and mechanics. Eratosthenes measured the circumference of the Earth with astonishing accuracy, using shadows and mathematics. The Mausion was more than library. It was university, observatory, laboratory, the beating heart of ancient knowledge. Scrolls like rivers. Imagine walking its halls. Shelves stretch endlessly, filled with papyrus scrolls, each scroll fragile yet together forming rivers of memory. The scent of ink and reed lingers in the air. Scholars whisper, debating, translating, copying. The sound of parchment unfurling is like the rustle of leaves in wind. To open a scroll is to open a voice across centuries, to hear Homer sing, Herodotus recount, Hippocrates prescribe, Aristarchus propose that Earth circles the sun. Here, knowledge was not isolated. It was a conversation across cultures, languages, ages, Egyptian, Greek, Babylonian, Indian, Hebrew, all mingled beneath one roof. The silence of destruction. But the dream did not last. The library's destruction is shrouded in mystery. Some say it was burned when Julius Caesar set fire to ships in the harbour in 48 BCE. Others claim it was destroyed during invasions in later centuries. Perhaps it suffered many smaller losses. Scrolls rotting, neglected, stolen. No single moment explains its end. Like many great things, it may have died slowly, piece by piece, century by century, until nothing remained. What is certain is that its loss was immense. Entire works vanished. Plays of Sophocles never copied. Histories of nations forgotten. Texts of science, myth, and philosophy lost forever. The library reminds us of the fragility of memory. That knowledge, once lost, cannot always be restored. That civilization itself is mortal. The myth of what was lost. Legends say the library held hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Some claim 700,000. Perhaps less, perhaps more. Numbers are uncertain, but the image is clear. Shelves groaning with the voices of antiquity. What secrets were lost? Some imagine maps of lands yet to be discovered. Formulas for inventions centuries ahead of their time. Records of civilizations now forgotten. Others see it as a symbol, not of lost wonders, but of human yearning. the dream to gather and preserve. The truth may be less dramatic. Many scrolls may have been mundane, tax records, local decrees, duplicates. Yet even so, the thought of their ashes stirs longing. For every text, however ordinary, carried a thread of the human story. And threads, woven together, form memory. The allegory of fragility. The fall of Alexandria's library is not only a historical puzzle, it is an allegory. It tells us that knowledge is vulnerable to fire, to conquest, to neglect, to time. It reminds us that civilization is not invincible. The flames of the library burn still in imagination, warning that what we know today may vanish tomorrow if not preserved, if not cherished. And yet the dream survives. Every archive, every library, every digital record we create is, in a sense, an echo of Alexandria, our attempt to defy forgetting. Echoes of immortality. Though the library fell, some of its knowledge survived. Euclid's geometry, Archimedes' principles, Eratosthenes' measurements, Ptolemy's astronomy. These reached us through copies, translations, reimaginings. Fragments survived in Arabic, in Latin, in monasteries. Knowledge is resilient. Even when burned, it can rise again, scattered across cultures, preserved in fragments. Alexandria's dream was not in vain. As you drift, close your eyes, imagine yourself walking through the halls of the library. The air is cool, the torches flicker, the shelves tower. You unfurl a scroll and read words written centuries before, words alive with thought and vision. Then imagine the flames. Smoke curls upward, scrolls crackle, ash falls like snow. The voices are silenced. The halls grow empty. Yet in your dream, you hear a whisper. Nothing is ever truly lost. Memory lingers, even in silence. The library is gone, but its dream endures. The dream of preserving all knowledge, of defying time, of seeking immortality in words. The legacy. Today, the modern Bibliotheca Alexandrina stands near the ancient site. A vast library shaped like a rising sun. Its walls carved with scripts from every language. It is both homage and renewal, proof that the dream of Alexandria was not extinguished. The ancient library reminds us that though fire may consume, human curiosity rekindles. We always rebuild, we always seek to preserve. The Library of Alexandria is both tragedy and hope. It shows us that memory is fragile, but also that the dream of immortality through knowledge never dies. Now we turn to another story. Not of preservation, but of loss on a scale even greater. A collapse so vast it plunged centuries into shadow. The Dark Ages, when empires fell and memory thinned, when knowledge flickered like a candle in wind. There are times in history when light dims, when empires crumble, when memory thins like smoke. After Rome fell in the west, Europe entered an age often called dark. It was not entirely darkness, for in monasteries, in villages, in distant lands, sparks endured, but it was an age when the great flame of civilization flickered, uncertain if it would burn again. The fall of the empire. In 476 CE, the last Western Roman emperor was deposed. The legions were gone, the aqueducts fell into disrepair, roads cracked, cities shrank. The order that Rome had imposed collapsed into fragments. In its place came kingdoms of Goths, Franks, Vandals, Lombards. They ruled not with law carved in stone, but with shifting alliances, warbands, and oaths. The grandeur of marble forums was replaced by wooden halls. Trade dwindled, literacy declined, and memory grew thin. To those who lived it, the fall of Rome was not a single moment, but a long unravelling. For centuries, people walked among ruins, living in the shadow of what had been, unable to rebuild its scale, its law, its glory. The silence of forgetting. When Rome fell, knowledge faltered. Many texts were lost, libraries neglected, schools closed. Skills of engineering, architecture, and medicine waned. Imagine walking through the ruins of a Roman aqueduct, its arches towering but broken, water no longer flowing. The people below still thirst, still toil, but the knowledge to repair it is gone. The stones stand as reminders not of triumph, but of forgetting. The Dark Ages remind us that knowledge is not eternal. It must be carried, taught, preserved, or it fades. The monks of memory. Yet even in darkness, candles burned. In remote monasteries, monks copied manuscripts by hand, preserving fragments of the ancient world. By candlelight, bent over parchment, they traced letters of Virgil, Aristotle, and the Gospels. These monks became keepers of memory. Their libraries were small compared to Alexandria, but they held the seeds that would one day sprout anew. Without them, much more might have been lost. In Ireland, isolated monasteries became beacons. The Book of Kells, illuminated with brilliant colours, shows not only devotion but artistry, memory preserved in beauty. These sparks remind us, even when the flame flickers, it does not die. The Byzantine beacon. While the West faltered, the East endured. In Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire preserved much of Rome's legacy. Its scholars copied texts, its emperors ruled with law, its churches rose in splendour. Hagia Sophia, with its vast dome seeming to float upon light, was a miracle of architecture. In its mosaics, gold gleamed like the heavens. Byzantium became a bridge, carrying ancient knowledge through centuries until the West was ready to receive it again. It guarded law, philosophy and faith, a flame burning steadily while others dimmed. The Islamic Golden Age. Further east, another light rose. In Baghdad, Damascus and Cordoba, scholars of the Islamic world gathered texts from Greece, Persia, India. They translated Aristotle, preserved Galen, studied mathematics, astronomy, medicine. Al-Khwarizmi gave us algebra. Avicenna wrote the canon of medicine. Alhazen studied optics and light. Observatories measured stars, hospitals healed, libraries grew vast. While Europe stumbled, the Islamic Golden Age carried the torch of knowledge. Its scholars became stewards of wisdom, passing it onward across time. The age of fear and faith. In Europe, the centuries after Rome were marked by fear. Wars between kingdoms raged. Vikings raided coasts, famine struck, plague killed millions. Life was fragile, uncertain, often brutal. Faith became the anchor. Cathedrals rose slowly, their spires pointing toward heaven. Pilgrimages crossed dangerous lands. Saints and relics offered comfort. Yet faith also narrowed vision. Some knowledge was condemned as heresy, curiosity restrained. The world shrank to the scale of village, church and field. And yet, in that narrowness, resilience formed. Community, ritual and tradition bound people through hardship. Legends and memory. Even in dark times, stories endured. The tale of King Arthur, whispered in Britain, spoke of lost order and hope of return. Norse sagas sang of gods and heroes. Folk tales carried a memory in oral form, preserving culture when writing faltered. These legends were not only entertainment, they were vessels of identity, reminding people of who they were, even when empires were gone. The slow dawn. By the 11th century, light began to return. Trade revived, towns grew, universities were founded. Knowledge from Byzantium and the Islamic world flowed back into Europe. The works of Aristotle were studied anew, sparking debate. Cathedrals soared higher, their stained glass glowing with light and colour. The Renaissance was still centuries away, but the flame was rekindling. The Dark Ages were not endless. They were a night before dawn. The allegory of flickering. The phrase Dark Ages may be unfair, for darkness was never complete. Yet it captures the fragility of memory, the way knowledge can falter when empires fall. History is not only ascent, it is also decline, loss, forgetting. The Dark Ages remind us that progress is not inevitable, that civilization is not unbreakable. The flame of wisdom can flicker, and yet they also remind us of resilience. Even in fear and hardship, people carried sparks. Monks copied, poets sang, farmers sowed, scholars preserved. The flame, though dim, endured. As you drift, imagine sitting in a monastery at night. The stone walls are cold, the air smells of wax and parchment. A single candle burns as a monk bends over a manuscript, copying words line by line. His breath fogs in the cold air, his hand trembles, but he continues. Each letter is a prayer, each word a bridge across centuries. Outside, storms rage, kingdoms fall, villages burn, but here in silence memory survives. Now imagine standing in Constantinople, gazing at Hagia Sophia's dome glittering with gold, or walking through the libraries of Baghdad, shelves filled with knowledge gathered from across the world. The flame was not gone, it had only moved, and as centuries passed it spread again, kindling new fires, lighting new dawns. The Dark Ages were not an end. They were a pause, a flicker, a night between days. From their shadows the Renaissance would rise, carrying memory into light once more. And so our journey nears its close. One final chapter remains, to step back, to see the cycles of civilizations not as isolated stories but as a single rhythm, a single truth whispered by time. History is not a straight road, it is a tide, It rises, falls, recedes, returns. Civilizations bloom like flowers in spring, radiant and full, only to wither, leaving seeds behind for the next bloom. Our journey across vanished empires and forbidden mysteries has shown us this rhythm. From the pyramids of Egypt to the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, from the silent cities of the Indus to the soaring temples of Angkor, from Greece and Rome to the whispered shadows of the Dark Ages, each has spoken not only of power and knowledge, but of fragility. And yet, even in ruin, they endure. The cycle of rise and fall, civilizations rise through vision, discipline, and imagination. They build pyramids aligned with stars, temples carved into jungle stone, calendars that span millennia. But time is merciless. Floods shift, droughts break harvests, wars tear empires, diseases ravage cities. Egypt endured for thousands of years, yet its kings became dust. Mesopotamia birthed writing, yet its cities lie beneath sand. The Indus Valley built baths and drains, yet left only silence. The Maya charted Venus with precision, yet their jungles reclaimed them. Rome called itself eternal, yet its empire fell. The pattern is ancient and eternal. Creation, brilliance, decline, silence. The wheel turns, always. The fragility of memory. What vanishes first is not stone, but memory. Names of kings are forgotten, myths lose meaning, scripts remain undeciphered. The library of Alexandria burned, and with it, voices we will never hear again. And yet memory also surprises us. Clay tablets survive fire, papyrus endures in sand, manuscripts are preserved in monasteries. Fragments remind us that even when whole civilizations fall, whispers remain. Humanity is fragile, but memory clings like roots in stone waiting to sprout again. The endurance of wonder. Though cities vanish, wonder does not. The pyramids still stand. Stonehenge still marks the solstice. The Nazca Lines still stretch across desert silence. The terracotta army still guards its emperor. These monuments endure not only as ruins, but as questions. They remind us that we are not the first to dream, not the first to reach for stars, not the first to fear forgetting. Every generation inherits wonder from the ruins of the past. Wonder is more enduring than empire. What we inherit, from Mesopotamia, we inherit writing. From Egypt, architecture. From Greece, philosophy. From Rome, law. From India, meditation. From China, invention. From the Maya, the rhythm of time. From the Inca, harmony with landscape. From Angkor, mastery of water. Every vanished civilization leaves something in our hands. Fragments of tools, stories, visions. We are their descendants, their inheritors, their continuation. To study them is not only to look backward, it is to look inward, to recognize in ourselves the same ambitions, the same fragility, the same longing for permanence. Lessons of fragility. The great lesson of history is fragility. Civilizations collapse not only by conquest, but by forgetting balance. Pride blinds kings, greed drains resources, arrogance invites downfall. Atlantis, whether myth or memories and scheme, is a parable of this truth. Its people rose too high, fell too far. So too Rome, once eternal, undone by its own divisions. So too Angkor, drowned by its own waterworks. Our world today is not exempt. Our monuments are of steel and glass, our memories stored in fragile machines. We too are vulnerable, to flood, to fire, to time. History whispers, remember humility. Lessons of endurance. Yet another lesson shines through. Endurance. Even in collapse, sparks survive. Monks copied texts in candlelight. Traders carried stories across deserts. Farmers sowed seeds in ruins. Knowledge does not vanish easily. It scatters, hides, transforms, and waits. The Dark Ages flickered, yet the Renaissance rose. Empires crumbled, yet memory endured. The lesson is hope, that even when the flame dims, it can be rekindled. The mystery within us, perhaps the greatest mystery, is not pyramids or lines in deserts, not gears beneath the sea or towers lost to jungles. The greatest mystery is the human mind itself. We are the builders of monuments, the tellers of myths, the seekers of truth. We long for immortality, yet live in fragility. We build libraries knowing they may burn, but we build them anyway. Our civilizations are mirrors of ourselves, brilliant, flawed, transient, enduring. The echo of time. Stand among any ruin, the pyramids, the Forum, Angkor Wat, and listen. The stones are silent, but the silence is full. It carries the echo of voices long gone, chants, prayers, laughter, cries. Time does not erase, it transforms, it turns voices into echoes, echoes into whispers, whispers into wonder. And so, every ruin is alive, every fragment of pottery, every line on a desert floor, every crumbling temple, each is an echo of humanity's endless song. As you drift, close your eyes, imagine walking through all the places we have visited. The pyramids at dawn, their stones glowing gold. The Nazca Lines beneath stars stretching into infinity. The Great Wall curling across mountains, a dragon of stone. The Library of Alexandria, shelves endless, scrolls rustling like leaves. Now imagine them fading, one by one, into silence. Yet the silence is not empty. It is filled with echoes, with lessons, with wonder. You lie down beneath the night sky. Above you, the constellations shine. The same stars the ancients watched, the same heavens they measured, the same cosmos they sought to understand. You realize you're part of the same story, a chapter in the same book, a voice in the same echo. The endless cycle. Civilizations rise, fall, and rise again. Knowledge is lost and then reborn. Monuments crumble yet inspire. Myths fade yet return. We are not at the end of history. We are in its middle, its turning. One day our skyscrapers may be ruins, our machines silent, our memory fragmented. One day future wanderers may ask of us the same questions we ask of the Maya, the Inca, the builders of Stonehenge. And that too is part of the rhythm. The final whisper. History is not only about answers, it is about wonder, about standing before the unknown and listening, about realizing that the questions of the ancients are our questions too. Who are we? Why are we here? How do we endure? The ruins whisper, you are fragile, but you are dreamers. You fall, but you rise. You forget, but you remember. You are mortal, but your wonder is eternal. Epilogue, the long dream. The journey ends, yet the dream continues. The ruins, the myths, the mysteries, they are not distant. They are within us, part of our imagination, our memory, our future. We are both the inheritors of forgotten civilizations and the ancestors of civilizations yet to come. And as we drift into sleep, we carry with us the whispers of pyramids, temples, stars, and scrolls. History does not end, it dreams, and tonight we dream with it.